Yeah, I didn't realize. Time to go live. We were commiserating about well, you don't have a lonely life. You have love. Happy VD, buddy. February 14th, Valentine's Day if you have one. And come hang out with us if you don't, I guess. Are you and Lindsay doing anything?
No money. So.
Well, Valentine's Day, love, all that other stuff. That's what today is about. So that's what we can talk about. If anybody wants to come on and tell their stories, Valentine disasters, dating disasters.
Do our old school love line thing we were doing whenever Emerald was still around.
Dating successes. We will analyze your relationship dynamics. This is an entertainment.
You still speak to Emerald? She's doing okay?
It's been a while.
I hope she's all right. I really do.
Yeah.
She crosses my mind every now and then. I'm like, I hope that girl's all right.
And happy Valentine's Day to everyone out there. Too. In fact, I think I want to put this on social media. I haven't checked the news.
Oh,
hopefully it's all peace and love still.
I did it. It's all piss and vinegar more like, but still.
Something House Republican, George Santo, House Intel Chair, serious national security threat. No need for public alarm. Yeah, not much. It seems like. Hey, Tim, the Tim I know.
Come on.
Is that the Tim is it the Tim that we know?
It is the Tim we know. Yeah.
Do we know him? I don't know him. Do you know him?
Well,
yeah. I like the little. Is that a? Fox?
He's been on the show before. I feel like
I remember. I remember him, but I don't know him. How do you ever know anyone? Like no? Is that part of love? Is love knowledge?
It is not.
Or do you have to have knowledge? Like the more knowledge you have, the more love you.
Love is more like faith. In the old school concept of faith, it has a lot more to do with yeah.
Like, what do you mean by that?
Like faith in another person. Like it has a lot to do with you're putting your life in someone's hands to a degree, and because you don't ever know them. Like you never know. I mean, I was with my wife for 15 years and then suddenly she got diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. Like she never showed signs of that before. So I mean, you never really know. Like things could happen at any time, and you have to have the kind of like I'd say it is the same as faith. It's just similar to faith in that sense. You have to make the choice to stick with that person, to love them. Love is an action, not a feeling. That's my basic philosophy on love. Love is something you do. It's not something you feel. You love someone. You choose to love someone. You choose to take care of them and care for them in spite of all of the can't do the word.
Why can't it be both?
I guess it can be. I mean, it is people associate it with a feeling. The feeling is kind of something that fades and goes away. I mean, it's you don't feel.
But if that's where the action comes from, then wouldn't the action stop too at some point? And if it's correlated with the feeling,
it's the choice. It's about your character. Are you kind of person that abandons somebody just because of a feeling goes away?
But it would come down to individual, whatever.
Yeah. And some people don't have that degree of character. Maybe some people maybe aren't really capable of true love or whatever. But
I don't think everybody is. I don't even know if I am anymore. Like I question if I even am. And if I ever was, which it's as real as it's ever going to get. Let's put it that way. But if I ever was, or like, have I loved before, but now I can't love anymore? Or was that before even real? But I doubt less the before stuff is the this point moving forward stuff. Hey, Lib, do you
What's
have
up?
any? Well, you're in a polycule. You should have plenty of love stories,
Yeah.
dating stories, romance, Valentine's, drama. We have it all. We want it all here today, so we can have it all.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have definitely an interesting perspective on love, which is that I think that people oftentimes, I think, are too themselves self-limiting on how much or what kind of love people can actually sort of bring to the table, right? So
I didn't catch all that.
I think
I
that
knew you were
people
gonna make it nerdy.
I think that people are like really cringe about love sometimes. Like people won't admit, oh hey, I love my friends. Like I I love my friends
I do.
deeply and truly, because I think that that's what the feeling is that you have towards
It's a
friends.
complex emotion, though. I mean, the Greeks had
No,
what
it is.
9, 11 different types of love, and I feel I have some sort of something toward my friends.
Mhm.
And in
I
the
mean,
past, it would have been more of a feeling. Now it's more of a just like an acknowledgement. Uh,
I mean, like
but
you're
but
well,
I know what you're
Valentine's
talking
Day.
about. But it changes over time, and it's
Mhm.
a very complex emotion. It's not just
Yes,
one thing.
it's not
And
just
I
one thing.
feel some of it for some friends more than
Yeah,
others, and it's different for each friend, et cetera, et cetera.
it's one of the
Well,
failures I think of the English language, that we really just have the one word. Um,
We should go back to Greek.
I mean, yeah, I think the Greeks had it right. I mean, even if you just take the three big ones that the Greeks used, the um,
Agape,
uh,
Philo.
and Eros,
Yeah.
like those three already just create so much nuance in talking about love,
and
that
Lewis added a fourth as charity, which I think is or like much like
yeah.
motherly love. And I think I mean
I
I
don't
know you
know.
don't like Lewis, which I think is
I'm
the
doing
one
my
thing.
charity right now.
I mean, no,
The one
there are
thing I
definitely.
truly disagree with you about, but yeah, the Four Loves is a brilliant book. It really is. If you've never read it, it's
If
really
I'm gonna be like 100% real, my main issue with Lewis is just that he like used Pascal's wager and then throughout his life defended his use of Pascal's wager and never sort of like backed off of it. Like he took a stupid stance and then defended it until he fucking died. Without acknowledging, like, and it was like a basically stupid one. So it just like
I don't think
fucking.
Pascal's wager is that stupid though. I mean,
I
like
think it's pretty
it
stupid.
had
It is
what
stupid.
why?
His variation of it is actually more stupid, because he just sort of the main sort of issue with Pascal's wager that people will often bring is that like which god are you talking about, and like his way of answering that was, nah man, other religions are just bullshit.
It's a little deeper
I
than
don't
that.
remember. Are you religious or not?
I'm spiritual, not religious. I
Okay.
wouldn't describe myself as religious. That would require
Adherence to a church and a doctrine. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm the same way. I had to leave organized church a long time ago. I'm a heretic to them. So I mean,
I do adhere to things, but it's not like a dogma in the same way that organized
Are you?
religion
But
has dogma.
you're supernatural. You
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
I'm religious, but not supernatural, and you're
Actually,
supernatural, but not
it might be reasonable to call me a deist, um, but I'm not. Uh, I do.
hey,
Sometimes it like gets a
hi,
little
it's
wonky.
Dave.
Hey,
Hi,
Dave.
I'm Dave.
Good morning.
Hi,
Happy
I'm Dave.
Valentine's.
Yeah.
If you have
Happy VD.
one. Yeah.
Happy VD.
How are we doing today?
Happy
What's up?
VDS.
Do you have any Valentine stories or love stories, dating
No.
disasters,
I just wanted to pop
successes,
in and say
advice,
hi.
laments?
Are you married, Dave?
Nope.
Do you do poetry?
No, you're not.
Nope.
You have in a good way. Don't take this as an insult. You have dad energy to me. So I thought
do.
I thought of you as someone who probably had kids. I don't know why.
Nope, I never had a wife or kids. I've
Okay,
had
well.
a lot of female companions, but never a wife. Nope.
Well.
And
You're missing
honestly,
out. You're
as
missing out on the
weird-
kids thing, as far as I'm concerned. But
Well,
I love kids. So
I would
that's
agree,
just
and
me.
No, there's
there
many
there
different
are
types
still children
arrangements.
that I protect and care about, like my nieces.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So,
yeah,
like, it's very-
yeah, I get that. Yeah, if you have close nieces and nephews, that's kind of.
I
very
still could
similar.
very easily give off a fatherly vibe because I'm very protective of them and things like that. Like, so I can understand that. Like, I
It is
might not
weird.
have a child of my own, but they are.
It is a weird transformation it takes when you become an actual dad,
Yeah.
and like you hear the dad stuff come out of your mouth, and like you're like, where did that come from? Dear God, please, who was that? What spirit just took over me, possessed me, and spoke that dad joke, and then like
And then you realize you've joined the long line of all
Crazy Uncle
all-
Emperor Dave.
all the
That's-
dads live in me.
yes, exactly.
I do give off crazy uncle energy for sure, though.
You do you all the dads live within you, and you become
Yep.
part of this long line of dadism, not Dadaism, but dadism, and which I think in some ways Dadaism is kind of a dad joke. So it's
Yeah.
very
Dadaism.
Dad.
Dadaism.
But yeah, you really you see these things coming out of your mouth and out of your head, and you're just like, wow, like you can't even. It's not even fightable, it changes you in a really weird way. It really does.
Absolutely. I've seen the transformation in others. I haven't gone through it myself, but you stop caring about yourself almost entirely.
When
No,
you're,
it is one of those. It is one of those
Yeah.
things that I have. I have a couple friends who definitely like they want to be dads, and I look at them and I'm like, oh yeah, no, you're gonna be a fucking great dad. Like I can just see it. Like I like they don't see it right now. Like one of my friends, he loves going out. He's
you
a
say
fucking-
mom. Excuse me, it's mom.
What? I want to be a
What?
mom.
Wouldn't it be
I'm
a-
probably. I mean, according to some, I'd be more of a mom than a dad in some way, but still very dad. I'm very dad-like in my interactions with my kids, but at the same time, like I definitely have a very nurturing. I'm a very nurturing person, so
You're way more
I
nurturing
do.
than I am.
So I'm in some ways I am that's the one of the ways I am non-binary, because I don't fit in strictly into either one of those two categories.
Well,
I
if you
am
look-
I am
if people
I am
used
both.
to,
I love that
If you
Gary
mom and
knew
dad.
that the EMP stood for Emperor. Nobody ever
really?
Oh, that's what I
asked me
thought.
about it.
That's-
Nobody
what
ever
else
just
would it
like
stand
assumes
for?
it properly. I like EMP. I don't know.
No,
Electromagnetic
and I thought of
pulse.
Dune, like Emperor, Dune Emperor.
So many people ask me about like, does it stand for electromagnetic pulse? I'm like, well, kind of, but not really.
Also, it's not pronounced EMP. It's pronounced
EMP.
EMP. Yeah,
It's true.
true.
Or is it? I mean, or is it? It
That's
could
a
be
good point.
empath Dave too. Could be empath Dave as well.
Empath.
Empath.
Oh God, I'm just remembering that fucking trend. Ugh.
Oh,
What empathy?
I mean, I am
Well-
pretty empathic. Like I do
I mean,
feel
I am too.
other people's emotions more than I feel my own.
I think a lot of
I do
people
too.
are
I do
pretty
too.
empathetic, which is why that whole trend was just very funny, because people
Yeah.
were like very seriously
I'm
being
an empath.
as an empath, and it's like, no, you're a person. You're just a regular human being. Humans generally feel empathy.
Some people do have stronger empathic
Yeah,
senses
no,
than other people.
yeah, I
But
thought-
there's
I'll
people
call
that
some
take
people
it to
really
like
pick
a
up on emotions
crystal,
better than others.
a crystal
Like,
lady
that's what I
level,
think
like
of
you
as
know.
the same.
No. I recognize that like there are some people who feel it lesser or greater degrees, but like it's always like that trend was always like it's like these crystal witches that sort of like trend. Yeah.
Hey, I was a crystal witch.
Oh no.
Hey, look, I like crystal witches. I one of the people in my polycule is a crystal witch. I appreciate all the. I appreciate all the spells they do
You
for
have
me. They
multiple
gave me
polycules.
No, I have multiple people
I thought
within
you
my
said one of the
polycule.
people in one of my polycules.
No,
or a person in one of my polycules is
I'm
what
not
I swore I heard, but
I'm
I've been
not
wrong.
yet a part of the greater Seattle polycule yet. We'll get there eventually.
Okay.
Do you have
Actually-
to get a certain number of members before you can
Yeah,
join
you
the
gotta
greater guild?
you gotta sign up to join
Yeah.
the polycule guild. Yeah.
Do
And
they
then you
gotta
really
have
have
guild
any
cards.
Do they have like a
experience
guild
with the
card and
CSPC?
everything?
They do have a sex center here. That
There's jokes. It's about Seattle and Portland. Yeah, Seattle and Portland, where there's just a really big polyamorous community here. So like, a lot of the polyamorous people in Seattle and Portland
Created a
will like.
cult.
I mean, it's just there's a lot of interconnectivity in those communities. Like literal, like I'm dating this person who's dating this other person who's dating this other person, and like there's this polycule over here that like I'm connected to over here, and it's very
that would make me feel
interesting.
so young, like I was in school.
I mean,
Well, maybe that's part of the appeal of it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like feeling young, like you don't want to feel old,
a
right?
part of it is like basically polyamorous people are just people who introverts who want to a better way to create D&D parties.
You know what's sad? You're not wrong.
Yeah.
I have seen this.
You know what's funny is like my polycule, we all met playing D&D online. Like
Are you in Arizona by chance?
D&D.
No, I'm
Because
in,
as weird as
Seattle.
it is, that's the same story that somebody I know has.
Dude,
That's from
I'm telling-
Arizona.
I'm telling you, there are. It's like
They play
there are
D&D
tens of
games
us.
together.
the queer community and the D&D community is like it's not an actual circle. The Venn diagram isn't a circle, but it's close.
So maybe the Catholic Church was right. It is all about demon worship and corrupting your soul and becoming
Well, none of us are
more
Satanists.
deviant.
So that's
Well, speak for yourself. Jeff is.
Jeff is. He's not polyamorous though. He is queer.
Yet.
He's gay.
I'm not queer.
Yeah.
No, I'm not queer. I'm gay.
No,
not
you're
I'm
gay.
not.
Wait, what's?
Don't-
Wait,
hey,
wait. Isn't
Don't
queer
tell me what I
anything-
am. Follow
Wait,
your own
That
rules.
was my apologies.
I'm confused. Isn't every okay? Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say anything weird. All right,
Mhm.
I'm just
No,
curious.
you're fine.
I thought gay and queer kind of fell under the same umbrella. I thought
Not
like
these days.
no.
Not
anything
anymore.
that's not straight is technically queer, but then queer is also an overarching term for I don't know what I am, but I'm not straight.
So broadly speaking, the queer community kind of just if you aren't straight, usually the thing goes that you are a part of the queer community. Now, Jeff in particular doesn't really like that. Doesn't
No, because
go
I
with,
make a distinction
Yeah.
between gay and queer. They're two different
Okay.
things.
So then what is queer?
queer means you're gay but also woke to Jeff.
Okay.
Kind of,
respect
sort
that.
of.
Hi,
the-
Crystal
the-
Shaman.
The queer are the
Hi, Gary.
anti-assimilationists, and they define themselves in contrast with heteronormativity. And the gay
Okay.
people don't necessarily do that. They don't necessarily see themselves in opposition to society, and they're more integrationist. And the gay marriage was like the crowning achievement of integration, where we assimilate to society and consider ourselves a part of it. And the queer people still experience themselves as outside of or separated from society and still want their own. See, this happened. Queer Nation started in like 1991. This was a big debate in the gay community in the 90s and probably even in the 80s about should we get is marriage something we should go for because it signifies progress, or is that assimilating to heterosexual norms, and should we go off and create our own society and not try to use heterosexual models? And I was of the marriage camp, where that would integrate us into society and give us the same rights that everybody in society has, and we would become an equal member of society. The queer people are the ones that thought that was like selling out to heteronormativity and that they wanted to create their own types of relationships and their own norms and everything separate from heterosexual norms, which they saw as oppressive to who they really were as a person.
Though
And so that's my distinction between gay and queer. And I was
that
very
makes sense
much in
then.
the gay camp.
Okay.
No,
But also an additional trend I see in today's queer community is around gender lines, where gay was just we were men, we were gay, we were male bodies, men, whatever, men versus women. We were men that were attracted to each other.
Okay.
The queer community today, there's an element of non-binariness, or like we're not only are we not straight, we're not 100% male, we're more gender fluid as well.
Gotcha. Okay. I can feel that. Makes sense.
Yeah, I needed some of that for me too, Lanza.
I'm glad you answered that, because I never would have known.
And now queer is
way
more
I
of a
understood it was
political
different.
affiliation. That's why you end up with
True.
straight queers that are identifying as queer, because queer can include almost anything cis heteronormative at this point. And so you can be straight with a certain fetish, and that makes you not completely heteronormative, and you can identify into the queer category, because it's becoming more of a political umbrella than anything describing your sexual attraction or even identity.
I'm not necessarily sure about the political umbrella, if only because I think that, like, when I think of like political sexualities, I think of like political lesbianism, which isn't really a part of modern queer culture as much. Political lesbianism is kind of
gays and lesbians are vanishing. At least the kind I knew. I think they're vanishing in these newer generations, and everything's shifting over to trans.
No, political lesbians still exist. They've all sort of shifted into the TERF community.
I was about to ask, are they TERFs? All TERFs now?
I mean, not all of them, but like there is a you can like sort of draw
is not self-determined,
philosophical
right?
distinction.
There are self-determined TERFs, though. There's people who are like, yes, I am a trans-exclusionary feminist.
I'm probably believe. If I don't care that much about the issue one way or the other, but
I don't think you
they would probably categorize me as a TERF.
If I considered myself a feminist, it would be a TERF. I feel like my issue with the LGBTQ is that the T seems like it's trying to leech off of.
Well, hang on, Dave. It is important to note that the T has always been there,
but not in the proportion or ratio.
In fact, it's worth noting that Stonewall, which I hope that we all know what Stonewall is, was actually centered around trans women of color. So let's just dismiss this notion that trans people sort of hijacked, the gays. Trans people have been there with the gays,
not in the
since the beginning.
Proportions that they are there today.
Yeah,
sure, yeah.
But
they did
gays,
not center the movement.
No one.
The gays have accomplished a lot. Like, they've gained a lot. They've progressed their movement a lot.
Well, the transes were there helping,
but I mean for
the gays, because they were a part of the gays. That like
we were not trans and gay are two different things. They're even two different axes. They were not.
I'm saying there were trans gay people.
It was easier
from
to
the
see
beginning.
as a single community back then.
I mean, I guess I'm just trying to make sure that we all know, our history, and we're not trying to say that
you're trying to make sure we know your version of what you want.
It's not my version of history. Do you want to look? Shall we let Google?
Here, I'm going to put this
Stonewall
in the chat. It's very well researched and referenced and footnoted.
And the thing is, I'm not like trying to disparage anybody. I am pro-trans, I'm pro-gay, I'm pro all that. I just notice certain things where I've noticed a lot of gay people that are wanting to not lose their rights in order to push for trans rights.
I don't want to. I'm not giving up. There are no trans rights. They have the same rights as everybody else, and I'm not giving up my rights for some imaginary new right.
It currently actually depends on your state, because there are some states that have been making efforts to, and successful efforts to, limit the rights of transgender people.
Wait, what rights are not granted to trans people that are granted to every other American?
So for instance, we can talk about in Florida, having access to like certain medical things. Notably, Florida has passed a number of laws directly targeted at trans people, in order to
obvious right that they don't have that we have.
What? Okay,
because you reach it. You always
you're saying something that they don't have access to that that you think they should have access to, not so much that everybody else doesn't have access to, because
so
nobody else would have the ability to change their sex either.
Right, like puberty blockers is not a right. That everyone else has.
Yeah, you're right. Cis people would also, similarly to trans people in some of those states, don't have the access to change to get hormones for gender affirming care.
Right, by the way.
No.
It's not high on my priority list.
Jeff, people said that it was a first world right to have desegregation. Okay, like I'm sorry.
I don't see this on the same level.
Wait, some people are arguing that we should have segregation again.
On the same level as desegregation.
A lot of these same people are pushing for segregation now, black only spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Which is segregation, regardless of how you look at it.
I disagree with them on that. Yeah.
So
you won't find me defending modern day segregationists of any color or creed.
But that's where I'm saying, like, I'm trying to word things properly so I don't come off.
Oh, you don't have to,
because I'm not transphobic in any way.
No.
I swear.
I believe.
Personally, I hope this trend keeps going further and further until the point where I actually can, as Raccoon said, I could actually go into a bank and say, like, no, I identify as a billionaire and therefore I need this loan, and therefore I can do whatever I want, with that money, and they can't deny me because I identify as a billionaire. That's what I'm hoping. This self-identification thing, I want to push it further. I want to push it further to I can self-identify.
We'll use self-ID to destroy the capitalist system. There we go. That's my actual agenda.
It might be it.
I mean, people have been making this joke for a long time. Like, they're saying, like, well, if self-ID is everything, then if I want to identify as a billionaire, I should be able to be one. Well, then, yeah, okay, let's push it there. Let's push it all the way there, and then I can create my own utopia with my billions I'll get from the banks. They can't tell me that I don't have. They can't tell me my credit's bad. They can't tell me my credit. I don't identify as having bad credit.
I identify as having good credit.
Yeah, I mean,
I identify as having the best credit. Okay, my credit is better than anybody else's.
You can't tell me I'm stupid.
I identify as having more money than Elon Musk. Yeah, exactly.
See, I don't identify as stupid. I just am stupid.
I identify as correct. So if you ever tell me I'm wrong, you're wrong.
But see, you don't have to identify as being correct if you just are correct.
Well, I am.
Easy.
Always.
There you go.
There
you go. That's how you get them. The self-ID model has more nuance to it than I think a lot of people give it credit for. And yeah, sure, whatever. The identify as Attack of the Copter joke is funny. Was funny in 2014.
I mean, I've never thought that was that funny.
But
I never understood why Attack Helicopter was the choice either.
It's just because it was the one thing that happened. I think it was Lauren Southern.
Yeah, it was
in like a street interview. Somebody she was annoyed by the way somebody responded to something.
What's up, Cynthia?
They identify as this, and she's like, "Well, what if I attack or identify as an attack helicopter. So it's like a spur of the moment thing, but it just caught on, and now every time somebody wants to come up with something
I know iPhi uses
outrageous, they use attack helicopter.
iPhi is stuck in the past. That is true. He's stuck he's stuck in 2015 on the 2015 internet. It's fine.
Hi iPhi if you're watching.
Hi, iPhi.
I just figure, like, you know, if everyone else can use this for their own means, that means that, like I said, I don't believe in trying to regress or change society or technology. I believe in pushing it forward and using how to use it best for our means. I want to be able to use the same weapons that they're using against us better. I want, as the gamers say, I want to get good. You know, I want to play this game and I want to play it better than they play it. And therefore,
let's go.
Yeah. I mean, that one doesn't really advantage me in any way.
That's what the incels call it. It's transmaxing is definitely a interesting thing to see in the incel communities. It's fucking psychotic, but it's definitely interesting.
Yeah. It's interesting. Transmaxing doesn't help me any. But what I need is money. So. I'm trying to figure out how I can use something like the ID.
I keep telling you to make a Patreon.
Yep.
But I need to be able to go to like a bank and get, like, I need more than Patreon money. I need world domination money. Okay, I need to actually not to actually dominate the world. I don't want to be world leader. I just want that kind of money. You know?
Oh, I do.
I want to be able to buy Twitter. I mean, why does Elon Musk be the only one who gets to buy Twitter? You know, I mean, come on. I want to buy Twitter. I don't want to own Twitter.
Right? I have plans for world domination.
That was a complete joke. I would never want to own Twitter. That's a horrible idea. I have no idea why anyone ever wanted to own Twitter in the first place. That's like the stupidest thing that anyone's ever done.
I want to own Twitter right now.
You do? Well, now you'd be buying X.
That's fine. I'll take X.
Cavalier, gender affirming care is a right in the same way that I have a right to go to the doctor and have the doctor like treat me regardless of whether or not Jehovah's Witnesses think that blood transfusions are a sin.
So what right is that? Like, can you articulate it?
Yeah. So like, for instance, if let's just say hypothetically that Jehovah's Witnesses gain, power and prominence in the United States, and if you're unaware,
I was trying to make it more clear.
Jehovah's Witnesses believe that blood transfusions are a sin, and so they're going to start making it to where doctors can no longer perform blood transfusions.
Now, what is the right now?
So
not the imaginary,
right now,
if the Jehovah's took over the world.
Right now, I can go to a doctor, and if I need one, I can get a blood transfusion. I have a right to go to a doctor and get a blood transfusion, regardless of the religious feelings of the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Right. But they're not going to give you one unless you need a blood transfusion. You have to need that blood transfusion. I mean, they're not going to. You can't just go into a doctor and be like, "I want a blood transfusion," and they'll be like, "Okay."
Yeah, no. It's the doctors have the ability to treat you in a way that the doctors understand is the best way to treat you. And in certain states, doctors can't do that.
Well, fair enough, but if
I'm not saying that we should force
arm.
doctors. I'm not saying that we should force doctors to do gender transition surgeries. What I'm saying is it is not the role of the state to dictate the ways in which doctors
all the
treat
states
patients.
Regulate their medical practice differently. Like, that's any state. I don't know if that's necessarily a right that you're talking about. Like, just that some states regulate differently than others. Because they don't only regulate trans procedures.
No. You're right. We'll take this. We'll take this.
That state is
no. You're right. We'll take this to its logical extreme then. All right. So let's a state says that doctors can no longer perform surgeries on Black people, and that is a state regulation.
That's different. No, you can't do that because that's
why not?
you're removing the ability to get any procedure from a black person. It's not saying you can't get the same procedures as if you're trans, you aren't able to get a procedure done. It's a specific procedure that's outlawed, not the person that it's being performed on.
Oh, okay. So you
So it's
can't
very different.
you can't perform surgery on someone who has more melanin than whatever.
Nope, that doesn't work either.
Why not? Why
That's
not?
different.
Why doesn't that? Why is that different? What's different about it?
Because you're not changing the procedure that can be done. You're changing the allowance of having a procedure done.
Yeah.
That's very different.
No, that's the same thing. Doctors aren't allowed to give people hormones for gender affirming care.
You're equating two different things. This is a false equivalence.
I'm waiting for you to explain how it's a false equivalence.
I just did.
They are
I just
allowed
did
to for
twice,
adults.
but you're not.
They are allowed to for adults.
You're not even
not in.
You're not listening to what I'm saying or something. I don't know. Because I'm not saying that it's who you do the procedure to. It's what the procedure is that's outlawed. No, there's no law saying we can't do this procedure to trans people. It's saying we can't do this procedure to anyone.
Oh yeah, but like this procedure is only done to trans people.
It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. That's irrelevant to what I'm talking about. There is no procedure that is.
Therefore, it's
there
not
is
discriminatory.
nothing.
Yeah,
that is
not
discriminatory.
Yes.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that there are states that now have passed laws against it, even for adults, and I disagree with that completely. I mean, like if you're an adult,
I mean,
you have
can
the right
disagree with it, but apparently it doesn't matter that people disagree with it because the states have all the authority apparently.
Well, there's checks and balances. I mean, there'll be court cases, et cetera, et cetera.
And eventually,
but would you say that
I
the
do think
states
it
should
will
win,
balance
Jeff?
out. I do think the lawsuits will eventually balance out, and and adults will be allowed to get whatever care they want in any state. I do think that will eventually shake itself out, just the way it did with gay marriage and other things like that. Because gay marriage was legal in several states before.
And abortion, obviously we've completely solved the abortion stuff.
But there's not really a right
Wade.
that trans people don't have. That's the best one you could try to articulate.
I mean, if you want to talk about like the Bill of Rights in that sense, no, there's not.
Well, no, I'm not even talking about the Bill of Rights. I'm saying rights in general. Is there something that trans people can't do that straight people or
there are laws that are discriminatory towards trans people that distinctly target trans people because they're trans?
I'm going to disagree with that. If it might. Okay. Is it possible, I'm just asking this in your opinion, that the people who are passing these laws believe that this procedure is actually not beneficial to the people who are trying to undergo the procedure that's being outlawed?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. In fact, I would definitely agree that I think a probably disproportionate number of the people doing so do believe that this is harmful.
Yes.
However, that doesn't make it harmful. That means that they're like stupid.
Wow, here is the man.
Hey, Steve, we haven't heard from our good friend Steve in a long time, man.
Happy VD.
I was thinking about you the other day.
Good to see you, man. Good to see you.
It's good to see you guys. It's good to feel the love, man. Sorry, I hope I wasn't interrupting anything.
No,
I know, man. I'm happy to see you, dude. I haven't seen you in a couple of months now.
Because Ember Dave, you weren't here yesterday, but I put a few links back in the private chat linking to
the rights that trans people have. Oh shit, my speakers are doing this thing again.
Oh no.
The rights that trans people have are the rights to whatever right they don't have that they're fighting for. And we're saying that they have all the rights everybody else has. So he was trying to pin it down to a right.
Well,
not
trans
afforded
people
to
specifically
trans
don't.
people that are afforded to everyone else.
They don't have the right to play in sports.
The sports in the bathroom thing
the bathroom
still debated. Those rights are still.
Well, it's worth noting that it's debated at a political level. However, sports organizations have had on their on their books, they have had rules and regulations for this kind of thing for years, because they have talked to experts on this topic and come to reasonable regulations and conclusions. And then the government has come in with its own political prescriptions.
Yeah,
I-
I agree with Lib, and I disagree with Lib on a couple of things there. So I want to agree with Lib on the fact that, yeah, that is true. For a while now, the scientific community has had a little bit more to play in the sports arena than the political arena. The problem is I think we still have to have conversations about some of the things that change and don't change. For one thing,
I agree.
contact sports is a big hang up for me.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I didn't like the Fallon Fox thing is because consent wasn't given to the person that she was fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If the person that she was fighting had consented to this would be a completely different story. There's while there are things that remain true, there's other things that remain slightly clouded that I wish we, as liberals like myself, I wish the left would have a conversation about without getting hoopy poopy about it. Because I think the reason why the left is losing so much here in the United States is because the left has lost the ability to have intellectual conversations with people they disagree with.
I think a part of I agree to some extent, but I would push back slightly, and I would argue that particularly in the trans sports thing, I think specifically is more or less of a failure of liberals or the left, and is more so a result of politically charged action from the right. Like before sort of we had this whole like trans sports controversy things, it wasn't like a problem. Like the sports organizations had been dealing with this situation for quite some time and had already been creating rules and regulations. I mean, the Olympics have allowed trans people to participate in sport in like the Olympics for decades at this point. They have rules and regulations. A number of lesser sports organizations have as well.
Wait,
and it wasn't
name a few from the early 2000s.
That a trans athlete has competed in the Olympics.
Yeah,
I'm saying that no. There haven't been, but the Olympics has had rules and regulations regarding trans athletes for quite some time.
Before we get way off into the deep end, can we pump the brakes for 1 second? Lib, can you define what trans means first of all?
Somebody who is transgender is somebody who does not identify with the gender that they were assigned.
Hang on, can we put a pause on this? We've got a person in the comments that's actually asking us for help, and that's the first time anyone's ever asked us for help. I'm not sure what they're asking for, but
who is John Dalton?
I've never spoken to. Wait, John, if you want to come, John, if
spam a real deal capital. Look, I'm gonna take him out. This is spam. So y'all carry on.
Yeah,
okay,
please don't. Okay. Yeah, please don't feed into whatever that is.
Okay, I didn't know what it was.
I'm taking care of it right now.
Yeah. So
it
anyway,
happens to everybody at some point. I've had
okay.
Things
All right.
like
So let's start over. So you're saying that trans is someone that is self-identifying. Here's the thing. How can you write a law when people are self-defining, and you have to understand people's intent and what they're defining their self as? You understand that, like, you can't really write laws in relation to something like that. It's a ever moving goalpost.
Well, first of all, I don't think we should be making laws about this. This is not shit that we should be making laws about. Laws are meant to protect individuals, not to define what is ethical or moral.
Like, but they do. But people assume that they do. But people assume that they do, though.
I understand that. But
laws based on our morals, though.
Yeah.
Well, I want to respond to Lib, though. My comment about the left not talking really is no one has ever been convinced of an argument using facts and rationale. Usually when you change someone's mind, it's usually because you identify with them as a human being. You can listen to their concerns. You can feel the passion in their, like, both conservatives and leftists can all agree we love children, we care about them deeply, and we're concerned about their well-being. How that is defined between the two sides is a little bit different, but we all hate pedophiles. right? That's one thing.
I'm actually not convinced that the GOP has as institutional of a hatred of pedophiles as
Okay.
No,
the average
I'm
person.
not talking about GOP. I'm talking about just
before we jump off into this stuff, like let's try to make sure we're talking about the same thing. So like you're saying, okay, what is a trans? B, you said reasonable. So like when you get into legal definitions and people you see the word reasonable, well, what's reasonable to you might be not reasonable to the other person, right? So now we're already had this amorphous term that can be used a million different ways, right? And like it goes back to also to it also goes back to bioethics. Like if any of you guys ever looked into bioethics, like how does a doctor determine what is good for you or not? Just because it's legal doesn't mean that it's technically good for you. There's so much fraud. There's so much fraud in the medical and scientific industry where if it's profitable, well, they'll just do it regardless of the ethics of it, and that's what bioethics is talking about.
Jack, you're pointing out a problem. However, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I would argue that's a component of capitalism more so than basically anything else. But
well, okay, but here's the thing though, you're using terms like that have an ever-changing definition and saying, well, we're going to base our morality on
all terms have ever-changing definition, Jack.
Well, Steve was making the point that morality is not even relevant to what we're talking about.
Yeah, which is kind of a red hair. I mean, that's kind of an alarming thing to say. Like, well, morality is irrelevant to the legal process. I mean, we're going to base our society on what then? People's feelings?
It's not totally irrelevant, but I don't think it's the most relevant thing. I do think that people who are, like making laws need to have at least some form of shared morality. But I think that's you basically just have to have a pretty basic shared morality. It doesn't have to be, we have to agree on every single little moral quibble, but we do have to have a pretty baseline similar understanding of morality, which I think most people do. Even if that their understanding of morality is like an unconscious, like it's not like a conscious understanding of morality. We
already have an outlining of that already, right? So we already know that there's what 3 or 4 things that everybody can agree on that you cannot consent to. You can't consent to being murdered. You can't consent to being raped. You can't consent to being stolen from. Right? These are things that pretty much everybody can agree
and don't
are
forget
across
fraud.
the board.
Sorry to interrupt.
Right. Absolutely. Fraud. You can't. Nobody can consent to being defrauded. Sure. So these are all things that we can all agree are ethically true, right? You don't do these things. But we also have certain things like in the U.S., we have the Bill of Rights, which is, I think, a phenomenal document. So with these things in mind, you cannot legislate morality. It is highly unethical to legislate morality.
Sure.
So that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is laws should be, hopefully, intended to be passed to uphold and protect individuals' rights, not to restrict them. And that's what they're doing right now is they're trying to restrict rights. Some have, some haven't. But across the board, any reasonable person, this is reasonable is by the constitutionally definition of reasonable.
Yeah.
Is
but you have to admit that we're so far removed from that. And I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm just trying to like contextualize.
I don't think the average person is that far removed from reasonableness.
Oh, absolutely they are. Let me explain my point. Hold on. You say that as it relates to the Constitution, and we're supposed to have negative right. We're supposed to have rights that are protected, right? Well, here's the thing. It ought to be a way, but the point is like when you have no ability to enforce rights yourself, then basically you have to rely on the good nature and well-intentioned, let's just say ruling class, right? So what leverage do we have over the ruling class?
Do that anyways. We have a democracy. Yeah, Jack, we do have a democracy. And while I think you and I might share many of our criticisms of our democracy, we do nonetheless have a democracy.
And I will agree with you guys because I'm more libertarian than I am conservative. I'm far more left than most conservatives. I'm far more left than most lefties in some cases. So I can tell you with 100% impunity that our legal system and our political system is desperately broken. However, when I have conversations with conservatives, because I predominantly swim in conservative circles, because I'm trying to bridge the gap between the left and the right. And the best way I've found to do that is two ways: is connect with what they feel are the most powerful arguments, which is the constitutional law, right? Constitutional ethics, and to appeal to their better nature as human beings. Most of the time, I've not met people that have been just outwardly hostile. Usually, they just don't understand it. Most of the time, they're seeing things from online sources like Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh, right? They've never met a trans person. They've never had a conversation with a trans person. That's why I had 3 trans people on my own podcast. And what I did was I went in and I said, hey, conservatives, ask whatever question you want. These people have agreed to answer any question that you want to have. And I asked those questions on my podcast, including child transitioning, right? And several of the people had different opinions on gun rights, on child transitioning. They finally understood that even trans people are a diverse group of people who don't all believe in the same things that the conservatives are seeing on Matt Walsh's channel. So there's this huge problem of misrepresentation of the trans population. And I think it goes the other way too. I think our left side is misrepresenting conservatives. So at some point we have to have a conversation about, okay, what do we actually believe, and what is, I don't like using the fringe as an example. That's why I don't use them.
Just before you jump into that, I think I know what you're referring to, and I want to mention this really quick. Both sides are being manipulated via their emotions in what you would call neo-reactionary, right? Like both sides are being manipulated, and who's winning? Well, it's that middle fascist path that is winning in lieu of people actually addressing their actual issues, in my opinion.
How are they being manipulated?
Propaganda.
TV shows, movies, social media,
TV shows,
TikTok,
talk shows, podcasts, you name it, everything that
there's a lot of propaganda.
No one individual is necessarily being manipulated by any single source.
Yeah, I think all individuals are being manipulated by every single source that they see.
I'm not being manipulated.
I think we all are in ways that we're not even aware of.
It is immensely arrogant to claim that propaganda has no effect on you. You can recognize propaganda. It's important to be able to recognize propaganda, but to say that propaganda, you just aren't affected by propaganda, it's just.
I think it's arrogant to insist that I am being influenced.
No, it's literally human to be it is human to be influenced by the things.
And that varies from individual to individual.
Yeah. Let me give you an example. So Jeff, if you walk into a store,
when Jack frames it, it's like we're all being mind controlled by this.
Sure. Okay. Let me give you a basic example. If you walk into a store and you see a woman and her child, and they're standing there with a sign and they're asking for money and food, and then you give them money, and then they, for some reason, happen to be scammers. Have you been propagandized or not?
No, I had my emotions clear. I've been conned.
That's being conned isn't being propaganda. Propaganda is a institutional.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's analogous.
I have been propagandized before. During the Russiagate, I watched some Trump-Russia documentaries that were pure propaganda that I fell for. So I have been affected by propaganda.
Well, yeah. What it goes back to is fraud. That's why I mentioned this when he was talking about the 4 major moral components.
Not all propaganda is fraud, NeuroJack.
Sure. No, I know that, but it's very subtle. It's like the term reasonable. Everybody agrees with the term reasonable, but people can also abuse your assumption that what is reasonable to you is also what they intend using the word reasonable, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to get into the weeds on a lot of these terminology, we can do that. But I think everybody understands broadly what these definitions mean.
Oh, I disagree.
And
I think that people
well, we're
don't. I
not.
think people don't. I think people don't look at things in a legal sense
It's
where
not.
people
It's not
use
necessary
definitions.
to get into the weeds about what specifically is good or bad or worse or
Oh,
fraudulent
yes, it is.
propaganda.
Yeah,
We don't.
no, it is
Not
important.
not
It is
for this.
important
Not
because
for this
people.
conversation.
I disagree. I think it's very important because people can just say, "Oh, I believe in ethics. I believe in morality. I believe in X, Y, Z." But people, people take advantage of people's goodwill and good nature all the time. I mean,
Yes,
it's just
that
a
is
fact
true.
of life.
More to the
Yes.
point, I'm describing the what ifs that come with the later weeds. Broadly speaking, most people can agree on a broad range of things that we would call ethically bad or ethically good or morally good and morally bad. Like there's a very large constituency of Americans and just human beings in general who can all agree that murder is wrong, but can agree that self-defense is fine. Right.
Yes.
There's also people that would disagree with self-defense and think that you should just lay down and die if someone breaks into your house to kill you. Right. Those are obviously unreasonable expectations. Right. Every person
Actually,
has the right to life and liberty.
interesting note on that specific example. What you're describing, castle doctrine. Actually, the vast majority of Americans agree with castle doctrine. It's something like
They're what?
70 something percent.
Sorry,
Something
you
like
cut out
70
just a
something
second there.
percent. Yeah. A vast majority of Americans agree with castle doctrine. Actually,
Right. Right.
It's usually stand your ground laws where you start to get sort of more division. Mostly because stand your ground laws
Yeah.
are fucking psychotic. But
Well, it's not. In theory, it's not. The problem is people take advantage of it. Again, this comes
Yeah.
back to the whole thing that we're talking about. People can take advantage of anything. Look, have either of you guys ever been overseas and lived in a foreign country? Like, rules are in general, it's like it's like a maze. If you build a maze for a mouse and he's trying to get to the cheese, and he can jump over the walls rather than go through the maze, he'll jump over the wall and skip the steps that he needs to take. Right? See, it's like this is how. It's not. I'm not making a moral judgment on it. I'm just saying like, this is how people think, right? Like here in the West, we just take for granted that people are going to, in general, follow the rules. I mean, that's just not always the case.
Right. Absolutely. My point is that you can keep building the walls higher for the mouse. Sure, you can do that, but on principle, what I try to do is I try to help people understand that you can advocate for trans people even though you disagree with their entire lifestyle and how they live. Right? You can
Yeah, of
still
course,
say that person has the right to use the bathroom associated with the gender that they believe that they are,
but
because
it
a
comes
lot
back
of
down to in what way are you trying to advocate? Like then, like what does advocate mean? What does help mean? Like, it's going to depend on your perspective, and I think that you can make a strong case on both sides that people have good intentions. Even on the right,
right.
who
Well,
like they
if I
probably
can
have good
finish,
intentions.
what I do is I meet people where they're at. I don't try to change every single person to do everything, right? That's not what I do. I try to very specifically approach people who are open-minded, who are open to having conversations, that understand that they don't know everything that there is to know. Like, I've been talking to a very conservative Nigerian who's a close friend of mine, Charles, who started out a Trump thumping, almost alt-righter. And now he's out there criticizing Charlie Kirk and he's criticizing Ben Shapiro, right? These are steps that I'm happy, even though he's still anti-trans and
But
I'm still on his side when it comes to his growth. But it takes people like me, leftists, having intelligent conversations with people that are open to having those conversations. I mean, even Peter Boghossian and James Lindsay in their book, How to Have Impossible Conversations, say, if that person refuses to have a conversation with you, don't fucking have a conversation with them. So there's always people that you're not going to reach. I'm not talking about them.
sure,
I'm talking
and
about
I
the people
appreciate
that
that,
will
but
sit down.
I would also, just so this is clear, I do think the vast majority of just your average individual can be reached, whether you're talking about, I am a conservative who wants to convince more liberal people, or I'm a liberal or leftist who wants to convince more conservatives. The average person, especially if you talk to them on like an interpersonal level, while their political ideology might be incoherent, people just tend to want to be decent. And so if you're decent to them, a lot of times even just that is enough to just get your foot in the door and at least open up for, honest conversations.
Absolutely. And what I do is I use people's belief systems for them, not against them. That's another thing that I do is, so that's why I come at it from the constitutional direction, because conservatives generally are constitutionalists, like diehard constitutionalists, and almost absolutists when it comes to like freedom of speech, gun rights, yada yada yada.
Well,
I would argue in my
say
experience, most conservatives believe themselves to be constitutionalists.
Right. So I
whether or
use
not
that, and I use that as the roadmap to try and help them, not convince them, but help them understand the position that these people are people and they have the right to exist as people. Even if they don't like them, at least they can advocate for them. If that's the minimum that I'm going to get, I will fucking take it every single day.
Let me make an argument really quick, really basic argument. Rather than leftists trying to influence rightists and rightists trying to influence leftists, why don't both sides who comprehend their own side try to stop them from reacting to things that is getting the enemy of the average man to win? See what I'm saying? Wouldn't that be a better?
Yeah.
I mean, well, the problem, Neuro, is that everyone thinks that they're doing that. Like, I would say that that's what I'm doing, but like, obviously, a conservative or a fascist or whatever would disagree with me.
Well, cognitive dissonance is strong.
But here's the thing, though. Like, you have to understand, like, when you call yourself a communist, I understand that you mean it in a different way in general. I mean, I think that you and I definitely have some disagreements, but here's what I'm trying to say is like, most communists have actually been fascist states, right? So.
Yes, most communist states have been fascist states. That is true.
Right, but the average right wing person that you talk to is not going to understand that, right? So they're not understanding that they're actually advocating for a fascist state that's going to look exactly like communism. See what I'm saying? Like, they don't see that.
That's one of the reasons why when I talk to people about what I mean by communism, I lead out with. The USSR and China are bad. Actually, go if you want to learn more, other than just me talking to you, you should go read these anarchists.
Right. Well, and I bring this up very specific. Like, I can tell you, like, I've been trying to warn people on the right that they're literally walking into like a communist revolution right now. Like the Tucker Putin interview, in my opinion, is a big sign that you are seeing a huge shift on the right. But they don't want to hear it. Even for me, who's basically more or less can agree with most of what their, ideals are, right?
Well, not a communist revolution. It is worth noting that it's a fascist revolution, not a communist revolution. Communism has kind of died.
Well, from their perspective, there's no difference. Essentially,
I hear what NeuroJack is saying. Yeah. So I think one of the things too is that we've indoctrinated our culture to believe that their feelings are always valid when they're backed up by someone else's feelings about that. Right. Sure. So you'll never meet a communist who reads anti-communist literature. Sure. You'll rarely meet someone who is a conservative and read anti-conservative literature. You just rarely happens. I'm like one of the very few anti-communists who will read communist literature and anti-communist literature and have a conversation with a communist without calling them a fascist, right? I can have those conversations, but that's an aberration. That's a problem. That's something that we need to address as human beings, is like, why are these things happening, and why are people not investigating their own beliefs? That is of critical importance as far as I'm concerned.
Well, it goes back to what you're saying about people don't make decisions based on rationality and logic on average. Like, it does happen, but it's a component, but the emotional activation seems to be overtaking that and I think it is due to largely, but not only to the mass media. Like we have phones in our hand 24/7, right? Like that's going to change the way people process information to some degree.
Well, yeah, and once we get caught in that algorithm, we're screwed. It's just going to reinforce our beliefs and never let anything else in. It's a serious problem. Absolutely. And for me, I'm a weird nut too. So like I'm a libertarian. I'm a heavy left-leaning libertarian. I believe in gun rights. I'm pro-capitalism, but I'm also critical of capitalism and what it's done in the last 20 years, right? I don't know why it's hard for people to do this, to be able to say, look, I believe in this thing, but I understand it has its shortcomings. I understand that there's problems with it, rather than just doubling down and being like, capitalism is the best way out there, or communism is the best way out there. It's like, no, those are very, very immature views of a very real world that does not function the way that it actually that we actually see it.
In my
you're in the right
experience,
place for that.
As I say, in my experience,
here's a perfect example. Perfect example. Go into any space, left, right, center, anywhere, and talk to them about men's mental health issues. It is a fucking nightmare trying to get them to talk about their feelings.
Yeah, we were talking about that the other day.
No, it is. I agree. As someone who's gone in left spaces, it's hard to talk about men's mental health issues.
Right, because the right says you need to be a man, you need to be stoic, which most of them don't understand what stoicism is. But they'll say you need to be stoic, you need to be strong, you need to be this immovable brick wall. And then the left is like, yeah, but you're a privileged cis hetero white guy with all these privileges. What are you complaining about? And it's just like, I don't think you guys understand what the fucking suicide rates actually mean, is that none of that is working. Right. So wherever you go, it's very difficult. Although I've had really pretty good success on the left. Like I operate a men's group that is pretty much majoritively made up of left-leaning men, but I have had interested in right-leaning individuals too, but they have a tendency to not go to those things.
I think part of the thing is online, at least. If you look at like online right-leaning men's spaces, the kinds of men that these kinds of spaces sort of cultivate are not like the kinds of self-aware people who would actively be seeking out.
Yeah, in my experience, they're actively pushing out people like me. They're actively pushing out people like me who are trying to tell people, hey, stop being an incel, go find a wife, and have influence in your community. They're like, no, stay here and complain about other men.
You don't want to hear that message.
Yeah, it's worth noting, Jeff, that when I talk about like the kinds of spaces, like I was in the alt-right pipeline in the 2010s. Like those are the kinds of spaces I'm talking about. Those kinds of spaces still exist today.
Yeah, they've just changed their names to something else that's I'm not going to mention, but yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know what kinds of spaces you're talking about, Jeff, but like within the alt-right and whatever, and their sort of progeny, those kinds of spaces, it's not exactly like a particularly healthy place for men. Not really a healthy place for anyone.
Yeah, the right spaces I've been in, I've found far more healthy than any of the left spaces.
Yeah, it literally tells them that, look at all these people pretending to be victims. Now you be a bigger victim than them, and you'll win. Like that's literally what they're telling right-wing men right now in these quote unquote right-wing spaces.
So
well, I don't. I don't know if I don't know how you as a gay Satanist have been in many right-wing groups. I would be curious to know how that's.
I was in the Crucible for a while, and that was one of the healthiest men's groups.
Oh, really? You think that the Crucibles community is healthy? Okay, please explain to me how that's a healthy environment.
For men. I've heard from many people it used to be a lot healthier than it is now. I don't think it's healthy now, but I have heard that at one point.
I don't know. I haven't been in it in a while, but when I was in it, absolutely.
I mean, I used to listen to some of the Crucible debates, and I do think they used to have.
I'm talking about their Discord to be.
I've never.
Yeah. I talked to a lot of those people, and look, some of those people are healthy, but I would say in general, like they are not keeping people who are trying to have productive conversations, in my opinion, around.
I think our little corner of the panelverse does a good job of that too.
Yeah. So can I address one of the comments in the YouTube channel in the YouTube comment section. So this is something that drives me nuts, and it's Raccoon City Public Service said, if you're okay with a grown man being in a woman's bathroom, I'm going to assume you've got some serious issues. So let me address that really quick. Why didn't you use a grown woman in a men's bathroom? There's a very specific reason why you didn't, and that's because inherently men are seen as bad. The penis is a bad thing. It's a dangerous thing, right? You didn't use woman in a men's bathroom.
Well, generally, generally, men are more dangerous on average. I mean, let's just be honest.
See, I hate that. If you can't have an egalitarian society or an egalitarian ideal, and then half the population living under the stigma of danger.
Okay, look. I'm not saying, I'm not saying that men are all bad, but what I'm saying is 95% of all violent crime is done by men. That's what I'm saying, right? Like, we have to be honest.
I mean, yes, but that's.
So what do you want to? You want to teach women to be scared around men? Because you can do that, but then you can't also train them to participate in an egalitarian society at the same time.
Well, sure you can, but people don't want to hear that answer either, so I'm not going to get into that now, but sure you can. You absolutely can, but you don't want to hear that answer. But so anyways, I'm not trying to argue the point. I'm just trying to make the point.
What I want to hear. Just give me the answer.
Well, if men and women were pair bond more or less, or had some sort of traditional way of life, then that problem wouldn't be as so big. But because people are independently roaming around without family connections or marriage or anything like that.
Are you wanting another Joshua Jones authoritarian volcano?
Did I say that you have to do it? I'm just saying if you want a solution, that is a solution.
The direction was going toward that.
Yeah, that is a solution. I'm not saying it's the right solution. I'm just saying it is a solution that you can have an egalitarian,
by genociding solution. Everybody that's not egalitarian.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, you didn't say genocide.
Where did I say that? I didn't say that. Where did I make that argument?
I'm just trying to make a point that we're already, like, with that comment, we're already setting off on a precedence that.
Hold on.
Let him finish.
All right.
No. You can't just smuggle that in. No, you can't just smuggle that into the conversation. Well, if somebody says that.
I didn't even hear his full sentence.
It's not smuggling. It was responding to a commenter in the comments.
No, I understand. No, but you're saying no. But what he's saying is you can't even have that opinion. You can't even have that opinion, is what he's saying. How you're telling me that opinion is totally unjustified throughout human history?
I still would
like that opinion is justified.
And apparently your mic is doing its thing.
Well, again, my point was that we're already starting off from a position where we have to assume that the male body is already evil. And I vehemently disagree with that. Yes, absolutely. Okay. We are the perpetrators of almost all violence, rape, child molestation, all of that. Yes. That is a fact that you cannot deny. However, telling me that I'm a horrible human being just because I have a penis is wrong.
Okay, well, look. Okay. So look, there are 4 or 5-year-old girls who go to a woman's bathroom by themselves, and you're telling me that any guy should just be able to walk in because he self-identifies in a way that is unmeasurable scientifically, the validity of that. I mean, come on, dude. That is not honest. I mean, that's just
like
not
saying that person, that trans person, is going to harm them.
I'm not. No. Okay, so you can make that argument for almost anything in society. Oh well, I mean, make that kind of argument for anything. Okay. I mean, let's just look at it at face value. What we're talking about, like you're saying, anybody should have the right. That's the implication of what you're saying. You're saying anybody should have the right to just walk into any bathroom.
No,
now, I don't even agree with the way.
Think about it.
Well, that's not what you just said, but okay.
Why wasn't it not a grown woman
in a men's bathroom? Let's talk about it critically then. Explain to me how you think it makes sense that we should just carte blanche say any man who wants to, any biological male that wants to walk into a woman's bathroom should just have that right.
No, I'm saying ask a question rather than making an assumption.
Well, your disagreement with
other than that.
Okay. So let's read his statement again and tell me exactly what his statement said that you disagree with.
His statement was going off of the assumption that men are inherently a danger to women in women's spaces,
which they are on average, like statistically, scientifically,
That's
they
not-
are. But okay,
That's not the point, though. The
Yeah.
problem is when you go
okay,
off
then
of
what
that
is the
assumption.
point? Then what is the point?
Is
Then?
when you go off of that assumption, that necessarily leads you to that limits you to a certain kind of solution, and that solution is necessarily not one that is egalitarian. So if we want egalitarian solutions, we have to be thinking about the questions in terms of things that allow us to actually do egalitarianism, if egalitarianism is our goal.
Okay, so okay,
And if it's
okay.
possible.
Oh yeah, that's a good
It's a
point. If it's
realistic
possible,
goal.
so
I'm
let's
not
assume that
sure.
let's assume that it is possible. Tell me how what you guys are talking about relates to egalitarianism.
I was
The
wondering if the point that
the
it
the
does.
assumption the assumption that men are inherently a danger to women leads you to necessarily.
Which you've already agreed that they are, but okay.
I have not agreed that they are. I don't think that men are inherently dangerous to women. That would be
What planet do you live on where you
I
think
don't either.
that
I don't think
they're,
that either.
that they're not?
And I didn't grow up that way. I didn't grow up thinking that. No, the women didn't.
Sure, I'm not. Doesn't mean
some of it
it
is
doesn't.
taught.
Look, okay, look.
Some of it is cultural. Some of it is learned. So it's not universal that men are.
I didn't say that it's universal. I said 95% of all violent crime is
You made
committed
the
by
little
men.
"What
That's
planet
what I
are
said.
you on?" comment. So I
Yeah,
told
and-
90,
hold on.
95.
Get as humans right now.
So 95% of crimes are committed by men. Absolutely.
Well,
However,
violent. I did
that
violent crime.
percentage-
Violent crime.
Sure, violent crimes.
crime, whatever
I
you'd
mean,
like.
I'm not. Y'all don't have to worry about.
That constitutes less than 1% of our population. So that's the problem that I have.
Sure,
is you're
of
taking
course.
1% of the
Okay,
population
okay.
as an example
Sure,
and
if
applying
we
it to the whole. That is functionally
sure, sure. Okay, so now you're bringing in.
wrong.
It's I would argue that it's even worse than like, oh, you're trying to associate what 1% of the population does with the whole. It is
Sure.
like you're talking about you're specifically using the word inherent, and I
mean,
I
they try to
don't
do the
think-
same thing with the black.
Well, okay.
no, they
Okay.
do. That's
Okay.
another example of this.
Ask a biological female who takes testosterone if they feel more violent or less violent. I mean, more.
That's not an answer to the question as to whether or not men are inherently dangerous to women, though.
Okay.
Most of the time,
Sure.
trans
So-
men
so-
get
okay.
hornier when they're on.
I didn't know you
Yes,
saw
that's
one
true.
like this, Nero.
Yeah.
I'm learning this for the first time.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. So testosterone changes things. So okay, then why not just take testosterone from all people and then we have less violence? That's right. So see what I mean? You can make that argument now, or you can say also, like you said, oh, only 1% of people are trans, therefore you're painting everyone as X, Y, Z. Okay, so because you're basically creating a new category called trans, which anybody can claim without any verification of the validity of that, because there is no standard which
Does
science
that make you less
can-
scary if you identify as trans? Like if they see a guy coming down the hall and the guy says, "Oh, it's okay, I'm trans," does that all of a sudden make him less scary? Or
Well,
more
I don't know, but my point is now you're bringing in the statistical thing. Okay, so which I did too, but let's say okay,
Well,
so now you say only one. Now you
I mean,
say,
is it
look,
the
you say, hold
category
on.
that's scary, or is it the
Statistics
No.
don't demonstrate
No.
inherence.
penis?
No,
body?
hold on. So you're also saying, okay, so now you're bringing in another category, and you're saying, oh, well, it's only 1% of the population, so why should we, now we're painting this 1% as a minority, X, Y, Z. Okay, well then
It's
why
not-
should we even? Okay, then basically what you're saying is, okay, we're going to start, addressing issues based on the percentages of the thing. So therefore, the needs of the 99% outweigh the needs of the 1%. Therefore, we're going to exclude that from the rights. So you can
Okay.
you're dragging in stuff that
you're
undermines your own.
Look,
You're dragging in arguments that are going to undermine your own position, and you're just like skating by it. Like I'm just telling you.
You're
that.
you're
No,
you're
this is
going
the
off.
lightning round iPhi. We got to do 100 topics in 10 minutes when he's up here.
Look, I'm not even blaming you guys, but either
Cynthia,
you guys are like,
hang on real quick. I told Cynthia that she could do stream court today with Machine Lies. So if they want to come up, I promised her we could do that. So y'all go ahead. Continue.
Sure. Yeah. And again, like either you guys are like trained Marxist and you're like, purposefully, muddying the water, and I'm not saying that you are, or you're just like
I can
happy to
vouch that nobody's here purposely trying to do anything.
Yeah. And look, I'm not even mad about it. I'm just saying, like, I understand that, we want to undermine society and stuff like that as communists, right? But I'm just saying,
Jack,
like,
I can certainly describe myself as a Marxist, but I like that my Marxist philosophy isn't even like a part of this conversation, because all I'm saying
well,
is that
absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. You're saying, you're basically making an argument that says we're going to take this totally unscientific, unfounded ideal and bring it into reality, regardless of anything that comports with reality.
That's not what we're talking about. You made the claim that men, you were defending the claim that men are inherently dangerous to women. And that claim, specifically the inherent bit, is what I take issue with, because to make that claim, you would have to then also, like, if you start getting into like saying like, yes, this group of people is inherently like this, then you're on a slippery slope. You start like assigning inherent traits to everyone, and like that
Sure,
in and of itself is creative.
Okay, so I'll replace the word inherently with statistically, and now we'll move forward. Okay.
Sure. Okay. Then we can address that with policy. Cool.
Which is what we were talking about. Which is what we were talking about is policy.
If there's a statistical problem, if there's a problem like that we're noticing problematic trends, then we should address those trends. But those trends aren't necessarily a product of inherent parts of, men or women or whatever categories.
I agree more on this than you and I, Jack.
So if I could butt in here for just a second.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's okay. So the problem that I have is, if we follow the logic that statistically this group of people is more dangerous than another, therefore we should assume all are, or at least most are, then we're going to run into some serious, fundamentally flawed conversations here. Because if you take the rate at which black men are convicted, right now we've got a system that purports that 50% of crime is committed by black folks. Should we then think all black folk are dangerous? And the answer to that is absolutely not.
Okay, well, hold on. But it is true, so therefore, should we not, you're saying, okay, well, we shouldn't make policy based on facts, so then what are we making policy on?
Well, it's important to also recognize the way in which that data, like why that data is the way it is. Because, like, for instance, with the fact that, men commit 95% of violent crime, there are societal reasons as to why that statistic is the way it is, that have nothing to do with any inherent traits about men. It more has to do with like society broadly. Same thing with the 1350 thing. Has to do with
you think? Sure.
I mean, we have to be careful about using statistics to decide how we're going to treat people.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree with you on that.
Treat people, but it does. Statistics are useful for determining, like, trends within society, but like how you go about addressing them is the way in which you go about addressing them is important. And I think it's important to critically go about addressing them. And so it's important to recognize, hey, what is this statistic actually telling us?
Right.
What is the 1350 actually telling us? Well, I would argue that it's actually telling us that black people are disproportionately more impoverished.
But impoverished doesn't equul like violent crime.
Actually, it does.
It correlates. It's not causal.
Sorry. Yes, it's poverty is very heavily correlated to crime. Probably it's one of the.
And a lot of the policies that were intended to correct such issues exacerbated the issues that it was intended to do, and that
was why I'm against policies doing that. I think societal change does a much better job of doing that than policy does. Because
right.
policy
Okay.
is
So
so
how is the
broad, and
policy of opening the bathroom doors for anybody who wants to walk in help a policy that helps anybody with the systemic or issues that we're talking about?
Well, one of the things is to note is that I guess we'll talk specifically about trans women. Is trans women face higher rates of sexual assault when they are forced to use the bathrooms of their gender that they were assigned at birth. That I understand it's another statistic, but it
okay,
is
sure. Okay,
you know.
and I would probably agree with that. Let's just say that that's true. Now you're going to put the other side at risk because of trying to avoid the other risk. So now you've created two risks.
Hang on. What risk? Because we do actually, there have been case studies done in other places that have shown that the amount of sexual assault that goes on in bathrooms actually goes down when you allow people to go into the bathroom of their gender that they identify with. That the not just like sexual assaults for whatever trans women and trans men go down, but sexual assaults in bathrooms go down.
Yeah, and just to be fair, I just want to let you know, I think that what we're talking about currently, I'm talking about the United States. I think if you went to some other country, you may have a different, view on this. I'm just specifically just basing all this on the United States without taking into account the entire world. Okay, because I think that kind of what you're saying may be different in, some other country.
I mean, you'd have to demonstrate a difference.
So you also have to look at it this way too. Is like I really don't like using statistics. I really don't. So I apologize for using them.
Yeah, and I don't either.
Look at the statistical probability of of what has happened, which is not very many assaults have happened in bathrooms from trans women going to those bathrooms and harming someone. They're very few. There's not really hardly any at all that we can see. There's a few aberrations, absolutely, and you could debate those all you want, and I guarantee you're probably going to come up with that person had some comorbidities that went along with that attack as well. But for the most part, the trans people that I know, and I have probably 20 to 30 trans friends, most of them just want to go take a shit and go back to their meal. That's all they want to do. They just want to live like every other human being out there. They want to.
I actually
go to work.
Agree with
they
you.
want to go to the bathroom without being discriminated against. So the probability that they're going to do something that
I actually agree with you, but also I actually agree with you on that point. But here's what I'm saying is like, I think that there, whether it's quote unquote natural or just a consequence of the culture that has arisen in the West, you have to admit that it is a pretty strange conversation that we're having now, and assuming that, well, this is just progress and we just have to allow something like this to happen because of XYZ reason, when let's just say a couple thousand years of history in the West, we don't really look at that as an acceptable way of doing things. And now you're just like, well, because we're just progressing in this direction, we just have to adapt to this progression that's happening.
Hey, Jack. The problem is there's other points of progress that we could also point to, and that you could use that argument, but I don't think you would agree that argument would be a useful argument in that case, i.e. our ideas of like race and letting, I don't know, black people use public bathrooms.
Sure, I guess you can make similar argument.
Here in the United States, for a long time, we didn't let black people use the white people public restrooms.
Sure.
However, that was fucking stupid, and we did it for bad reasons. So it's good that we got rid of that.
Sure. Well, I mean, using the word "good" is, a word that
I think you, and everyone on this panel can agree.
I'm quite sure he knows at least 10 trans people. No, panel. Well, I guess if Machine's not here, Cynthia could still come on if she wants.
And I'm not advocating that we just do things blindly. That's not what I'm advocating for. I'm advocating for having decent conversations between human beings who can literally sit in a conversation that makes them feel uncomfortable and not be a complete asshole and call people fascists or communists or, name call and shit like that, and just have a conversation about the humanity of each one of these individuals that are going through these things. Because at the end of the day, that's the intent, right? Is for all individuals to have the freedom and liberty that they deserve, especially under our Constitution, but under almost any society. We would hope that equality, egalitarianism, and freedom are the things that we think about the most, whether they relate to us or not. Like, I think that's where I differ from a lot of people when I have those kind of conversations. Is I'm not trying to change society. What I'm trying to do is just get people to have reasonable conversations.
I think getting people to have reasonable conversations will inevitably change society, and I would hope would change society for. I mean, maybe it's just the liberal in me, but people having civil, reasonable conversations, like actual constructive conversations, will change society inevitably in a positive direction too. I think.
Right.
You
got to get down. Well, it's just and I got to compliment NeuroJack on this. Is like, he's doing what he's supposed to do and investigating why. And I'm not trying to what I can't talk today. I'm not trying to bring up Jordan Peterson or anything like that. But our job is to investigate why things happen. And if the question is surrounding, are you comfortable with a man in the ladies' bathroom? We can have a conversation about that. But we also have to have a conversation about what's the issue with men, right? We have to deal with the issue of what do you think is going to happen, and all of those things along the line, so that we can come to at least some kind of rational conclusion. And for me to understand you, like, my goal of coming to this conversation isn't to convince you; it's to understand you. Even Sun Tzu said is to defeat your enemy, you must learn to love him. So
yeah, exactly, and that's kind of what Jesus was saying too, in my opinion.
Yeah, just having these conversations and trying to get to the bottom of why people are so passionate about the things that they believe, and then investigating how those arise, leads to better conversations and better understandings of not just ourselves, but for the other people that we're talking to. So they might have a better understanding of trans people when they actually talk to a trans person. So all of these conversations matter, even on the smallest level. They matter hugely.
Yeah. No,
I wish that more right-wing people would actually have this kind of conversation, but they won't, right? So,
God, I know. I'll tell you though, I have had better luck having conversations with conservatives than leftists.
I've seen them.
Not really, but
well, I mean, we're talking about like civil, constructive, not just debate. Like, debate is fine and good, but like, I think what we're talking about is more like on an interpersonal level, like, online, offline, whatever. Like, people having these conversations usually with their friends, right? Like, because this is kind of how I sort of, I guess, began my journey in conversation, was talking to my friends. A lot of my friends, I grew up in Tennessee, and the vast majority of my friends also grew up very conservative, and many of them are still very conservative to this day. And I would like to say that most of those conversations were constructive and went somewhere, but unfortunately, that's just not the case for a variety of reasons. Some of which are my fault, some of which are on them, some of which is just due to insane amounts of propaganda. There's a whole host of sort of things that you run into, and I think, like, yeah, sure, not every conversation is gonna pan out great and perfect, but it is important that we have these conversations nonetheless.
Yeah, and I agree, and I apologize if I was a little rude and stuff. It's really hard to get my point across, because a lot of times, like, we're all kind of like speaking past each other, myself included. But I wanted to mention also, like, a lot of the right-wing people think that I'm against them because, like, I test their thoughts, and then same thing with left-wing people. Like, I'm sure that I was like adversarial to you guys, but at the same time, like, we're helping each other refine our arguments. In my opinion, right? Like, we're
so bad right now. Hang on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that refining our arguments will help everybody, and especially not to fall into the trap of reactionary things that don't help anybody.
Yeah, that's really the truth of the matter, man. Because you see a lot of people, they have these beliefs that are really rooted in not necessarily themselves, but their agreement with others, and that can be a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like there is. I have noticed in many of my conversations that there does seem to be sort of this issue with I don't know, propagandists on the right. For whatever reason, maybe it's just the people I talk to. They always listen to like the stupidest fucking propagandists from the right. They listen to like fucking Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, or Matt Walsh. And I'm gonna be honest, like the arguments that those guys use and purport are like kind of fucking stupid. Maybe it's just me. I'm sick of hearing them because I've dealt with them for so long that like it's irritating whenever someone brings up, some like Ben Shapiro. They say, "Oh, what will people do about rising sea levels? Just sell your house and move."
Well, what's even more frustrating is the majority left's response to those things, because they're generally very shallow. They're not very intelligent, and they're not very considerate of what is the underlying issue, and that is usually a concern for something else, right?
Yes.
So I can't, like, as a left-leaning person, I can't even go on and see what other leftists are talking about, because I find them so banal. Their arguments just aren't deep.
There's a few decent ones, all right. I know literally everyone on the panel will disagree, but I'm a personal fan of Voosh. His
What about his latest? I keep seeing him all over the place.
Have you not been following the latest Voosh?
You mean the H3 hit piece? Yeah, I did watch H3.
It wasn't just from H3 though. It came from a lot of different things. I mean,
no.
The evidence is quite damning.
I think Destiny has a better rap on things than Voosh, but
it's on some things. I do think Destiny has this like really weird antagonism towards anyone who's like to the left of him.
He does. He looks down on working class people. But let's talk about the horse porn. That's what we're really here for.
The what?
The what?
The horse porn.
The horse porn?
Yeah. I mean that's not the thing that bothers me. It's all the clips that people have been digging up of him literally saying that he doesn't that children and adults could have sexual relationships and it could be positive for both of them.
No.
He's
not actually advocating for that, are they?
He's folders on air. It had horse porn in it or something.
It did have
lolly horse porn.
No, actually, so it is worth noting it wasn't lolly porn. It was a piece by an artist who is a lolly artist, unbeknownst to him. Which, for what it's worth, is not like that's happened to me before. Like I've seen a piece from an artist and then like later gone to see more of their stuff, and I find out that they're like a lolly artist.
What is a lolly artist?
I'm
not familiar with that term.
It's drawn kids, but it's a Japanese thing. Yeah.
Well, before we get off into this kind of weird territory, I didn't know that about Bosch, but I mean, look, here's what I want to say about this. Like, look, on all sides of this situation, you have gatekeepers, right? And look, I did not want to even believe in that term, but like you were saying about like the right wing Ben Shapiro's and Steven Crowder's are like bad propagandists. I agree. And then you have better propagandists like an Alex Jones or Tucker Carlson or Elon Musk. And they're a much better one because they seem almost reasonable and they talk about things that are actually undeniable and weird.
I'm not sure that Elon Musk is actually a good propagandist because he's kind of fucking an idiot overall. But
you can't really tell what he is, but that's kind of my point.
No, I think I can pretty well tell that he's a fucking idiot. That's pretty self-evident.
He's a rich idiot with a lot of power and influence. But yeah, so here's my point.
Yeah, not anymore.
So here's my point. On the
right wing, it's hard to say he's a complete idiot. I think he's very autistic and he's very.
I don't even know who you're talking
about. Some really stupid things.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's neurodivergence. If you don't have an eye for that,
he's
you're gonna miss.
He's very autistic and he has very little, very bad social public relations skills. But he's clearly enough to do some. I mean, I don't think he got there entirely by luck. I mean, I'm just saying.
No, he's talking about Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
So
Alex Jones is smart. I think Alex Jones.
What does Elon Musk have to do with men's mental health?
So here's my point, really quick, and I'll shut up. on the right wing you have better propagandists like that, and then on the left wing you have some better propagandists, which I don't even know, but let's just say, like on the right wing, the smart people are getting caught up in the conspiracy theory stuff because there is truth in it, but basically it's keeping them from actually having productive conversations and movements that will actually win people's hearts and minds. And the same thing on the left, where you have like these extreme like eco people that are pointing to something that is true, which is we have a resource problem and fossil fuels are, let's just be honest, fossil fuels are the control mechanism of the elite people in this world, and there's no denying that. And it probably, that along with a lot of other stuff, including I would say a lot of this bioengineering stuff that they're just kind of like
You said
making us accept, is a problem. But then you see the left and the right have no real a way to address these problems because they have no real power, and they have no real avenues to power for people who are ethically minded. And so you see
they
that
both
like
support the oligarchy, though. That's the problem.
that's
They both
exactly
support the
right.
oligarchy.
Right, and that's my point is they're diffusing well-intentioned people into not having any actual
I do think there are people on the left who are attempting to do the work. There's been a lot of like climate activists who've been really pushing hard for divestment from fossil fuels for a long time. Which, look, is it too little, too late? Yes, I think it's too little, too late. But I mean, something.
Well, look, like
hang on. I do want to get back to men's mental health before. I mean, we've been taken all over the world.
Well, this is related. This is related to men's mental health. I mean, if you're in a situation where you have no ability to control your environment and you're being fed information that makes you feel more isolated and alienated from the society in which you want to participate.
People get their information from so many different.
Oh my God, Jeff! Come on, are you
pumping information into
it's science? It's a scientific fact that all this social media is negatively impacting the quote unquote mental health
this social media is not a single pipeline of information.
It doesn't have to be effective.
Yeah, and in your analogy, there's people are getting fed or pumped.
Okay. Let's just say okay. Let's say that 3 different volcanoes in the world.
And you said it had to do with men's mental health.
It does. You're telling me that it doesn't affect men's mental health, the situation that we're in?
Okay, let's talk specifically about men's mental health then. What about it? Does it affect? I know they have the highest suicide rate.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Because the society that they want to be a part of is rejecting them, and they have no way to participate in a healthy, productive manner that makes them feel valuable or wanted. That's the reason why.
Makes more sense to me. I think that's a good starting point.
Right, and I'm saying that this whole false binary of the left and the right and all this propaganda is a huge component, if not like the cornerstone, in my opinion.
Jack, it's I do think
you
start somewhere and then
my friend who's a fellow communist of yours named Pill Eater, he talks about he got it from somewhere else, but he talks about the synthetic left and the synthetic right, where you have people basically LARPing on both sides that are misleading people from any actual resolution on either the right or the left.
What about feeling rejected by society and not feeling like you have a purpose or a place in society to contribute something useful, and as a male, and the effect it would have on someone's mental health?
Yeah. Well,
speaking of mental health,
you can take a couple of examples here, and I'll just take one of the most egregious ones: is the way that we treat our veterans. Yes. The VA is absolutely trash when it comes to men's mental health. Right? They'll toss a veteran from therapist to therapist to therapist to therapist, and these guys are so frustrated they have to keep explaining these experiences and never having anybody actually help them. Right? So this is kind of the pipeline that I think NeuroJack is trying to get to the point of. Is like there's a slew of almost unseen pathways that are not conducive to positive men's mental health.
Right, and just to take it even, I'll take it even a step further. I'll take it one step further, because I agree with what you're saying, but I want to take it one step further, and then I'll shut up, let everybody get in, because I think you guys have a better way of explaining it to me. Here's my point. Just take that one example. It's not only that the veterans are not being treated well by the VA. It's the fact that society has been made to agree to wars that we send them all overseas that we don't agree with, and then they come back and we just expect the government to help them out. And so it's because we cherish warriors, but we at the same time we've been asked to agree to do things as a society that we know is wrong. And so it's kind of like this cognitive dissonance, and it's breaking people's psyches, in my opinion. And then the thing is, like, it's used to be communities and churches and families that came together and took care of people regardless that the government was there to do it. And now people have ceded their power at the local level and within their families and within their communities, and they've put that responsibility onto this amorphous thing that there's no personal connection to, which is the government or the VA or whatever. And so, like, our institutions have robbed us of our own volition, essentially, in my opinion, right?
But
and
before we go too far, what do we mean by mentally healthy?
Fitting into the existing society. It's absolutely a contextual term.
It's a problem because if the society is sick, then you're sick.
If I can answer that, mentally healthy means that you have, first and foremost, a positive personal mental image of yourself, but also the avenues of which you can explore when those are not adequate. So, for example, therapy has been predominantly female-based for a long time. And so when men go into these therapy sessions, the therapy sessions don't work because they don't address the men's issues that they're facing. I struggled with that with my first therapist, and luckily enough, we were able to get through it. And then she started to finally see the problems that were affecting me. Like, most men respond really well to talk therapy, far more than females do. So there's a whole bunch of systems set up that we don't even know exist that are making it very difficult for men's mental health to be something that we can actually grasp and hold on to, which is why support groups for men are so critically important, which is why I started one. Is it gives men the opportunity to sit there and talk about their problems, and without being told that they're, they can cry. And it's like, crying is not anti-masculine. The best thing that a man can do, if he wants to be like the man of the house, the best thing he can do is make sure his shit does not bleed over into his family. So thereby, therapy is the most manly thing that you can do. Right? But that's not the perception that we have of men's mental health.
I'll tell you why really quickly.
Therapy was really manly. You should totally spend a lot of money talking to some chick that won't touch you, then everyone will be healthy somehow.
Well, I think you can make an argument that some talk therapy could be good. Here's the problem. There's a huge political agenda behind the mental health industry, and let's just not, mince words about that. Like, that's know.
Kind of my point.
Yeah, like, there is a huge political, I'm sorry to say, Lib, but, colloquially, I'll call it a communist bent to the term mental health, right? And this relates back to gun rights and stuff like this, where some crazy bad people do some evil things, and now we need to have mental health checks to buy a Second Amendment tool, let's say. And then the problem with that is like, if we're really the only country that can be armed, and the rest of the country and the rest of the world really isn't, on a personal level, I mean, that is, and we're giving up more and more of our ability to, be independent from, the structures that don't really represent us. Well, isn't that, that's an abuse. That's something that is ripe for abuse, to put it mildly, right?
Yes, but maybe since we have this relative metric that we can't really nail down, mental health is just an opinion that you and your therapist have. It's very hard to nail down.
Well, and who's interested in us succeeding in our mental health too? Because that's That's kind of that's a problem that I run into where, we made the claim that men are the most violent members of our society. Absolutely. We get blamed for a lot of things, rape, child abuse, those things. But not once do I ever hear anybody advocating for men's mental health to stop that from happening, or at least to decrease it from happening. Usually it's just attack on men. That's all there is.
Well, and there's some things that would actually help men's mental health, like, getting married, having kids, having, not working 80 hours a week to buy a house that they can't really afford, and paying 10% on their interest, and having to pay $1,200 a month just to get health insurance, and you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a compounded issue of many things all together as to why men are suffering, right? And I'm not saying, like, it's not to take everything back to economics, but there is a huge myriad of things compounding, right? And society is happy to. It's just like the medical industry, right? Like, the medical industry is happy to sell you treatments rather than cures, right? And I think that we have the same problem in mental health and a lot of these other things going on, right?
Well, there's no money in healthy people.
Yeah,
there's no money in healthy people.
What I think we're dodging around is that part of the issue is that our healthcare broadly, but specifically the mental health care industry, is within this late stage capitalist system, where
it's a mixed system,
where profit is the, primary motivator.
No, it's a mixed system because the insurance system's pretty socialist, so it's a toxic mix of capitalism.
Yeah, and just to back up Hank really quick, I just want to mention this. Like, we are in a mixed economy, number one. Number two, like, I think that the economy that we think of as capitalist right now is actually quite fascist and quite contrived, in my opinion. Like, if you really trace,
fascism and capitalism are not diametrically opposed.
There's a
Germany,
point. Your doctor doesn't know how expensive that treatment is. It's all negotiated between their hospital and the insurance company.
Yes, I did really fast want to address this, that capitalism and fascism
to capitalism. They don't even know how much treatment costs.
Hank, can I offer a different perspective for a second?
Probably
let's let Lib finish his sentence. We gotta let people finish.
Other people talk. Is this your panel or?
Hey! Now, don't come on here and start acting.
Okay, so Hank, someone said there's no money in mental health.
Actually, you know what? No, I am going to finish my sentence. Fuck you, iPhi.
So there is plenty of money.
Capitalism and fascism are not inherently separated. Our term for privatization actually comes from what the Nazi Germany did to their economy. Fascists and capitalists are not ideologically opposed intrinsically. Many of them are in some respects, but not necessarily. You can have a fascist government that has a capitalist economy.
Who are you talking to, Lib?
Me. He's talking to me.
Oh, okay.
Jack.
I want to point out.
That's right. Yeah.
Hang on. I want to point out that Cynthia's here. I told her she could come today. She has some stuff she wants to give.
Hi.
We're talking mental health.
So, Hank, do you want to continue talking about trans, fascist, communism, or?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
No, go ahead, carry on. I'll be right here.
No.
They have these conversations all the time, all day long. This can wait.
Cynthia,
I have a complaint against the machine lies.
Hey guys, hey brothers, I just want to smoke my bong real quick and listen to music.
Okay.
And Cynthia's got a problem.
Female gave iPhi permission to stand in as him.
Yeah. So I bless you all, brothers. I just want to say, I'm the best friend you guys could have. So
at least get it right. He doesn't use a bong. He uses
you're
a
an
weed
extra
pen.
right now, an NPC really.
I know it sounds like I got laryngitis. It's
You're just a
because
little
I've been
head
hitting
on
my
a
bong
stick.
all day. So just forgive me, brothers. But
So right
anyway,
now,
Cynthia.
in fact, do you want the solo? You want the feature, the spotlight?
No, you can put iPhi and I next together.
All right,
That's totally up to you, because this is iPhi is standing in for.
I'm just paranoid chilling. It's cool with me.
Okay. Now, are you going to come at, like, are you going to see my way at the end? And are we going to come up to some resolution? Or are we going to keep this?
Well, just what's going on with you? Like, tell us what you're.
Okay.
You might need to catch me up, Cynthia, since
hang
I don't
on,
know exactly what's going
has
on.
the floor. She's going to clear it all up for us.
Go, Cynthia. Go.
Okay, so here's the deal. So apparently TML was asked a question, and he was offended by the question, and he became out of character of what I've known him to be on the internet. And that character is he's always known to be a man in control. He's always known to be a man to not be discombobulated when it comes to conflict content in his chat or on his panel. He even appears to be someone that engages in that. So when
for sure.
So when he was offended, I was taken back by his behavior. So I came and I talked to him about it the next day, and then it became very aggressive between him and I, and it's been up. And I wanted to come and apologize, but he hasn't. He's mad, and he's staying angry at me.
So
well, you told me
you have an apology.
Well, I wanted to come up and apologize, and then I came to your chat that one day and said that I was here to get TML's attention, and he was like, "I don't care," and then he started calling me whatever he's calling me.
Cynthia with an S, yeah. It's
Cynthia.
Oh, that's what they.
I don't know.
Cynthia. Okay,
okay. So if you just want to
I would
apologize
maybe give
to me,
him,
that's
just
cool.
from what I've seen of it, it's not even just you. He's kind of having stuff go on with several different people right now, and just from what I've seen over the last week, I would just give him some space. Just in
give
general.
him some space. That's what you think I should do.
From anybody, yeah, that's what I would tell anybody right now.
How much time do you think space and time is that?
Just kind of watch it each day or each week.
I would say like
a week.
A couple of weeks.
At least a week.
Well, then you just said down there in the chat that I'm an elderly lesbian lady.
Who's saying that?
He said that I was gay.
And then you were hitting
I don't
on
see
him.
TML in the chat at all.
No, that's what I'm saying. So,
is it Browns?
No, Brown doesn't count. Brown boy doesn't count.
He might have been talking about the panel. It's confusing. I understand.
Hang on, I have to. We're doing some moderating here.
Yeah. So hold on, Cynthia. Look, I'm going to be respectful and everything, but do you think that it's a reasonable, rational thing to do to come up and repeat, accusations by a known liar on a public forum as a friendly gesture? I mean, do you think that's a really friendly thing to do?
Whoa. Are you accusing Lindsay of being a known liar?
No. She said she cited who she got that from.
Oh wait, this is NeuroJack.
Who did she get it from? I didn't hear that.
Well, I'm not going to repeat it here because I don't need to repeat it. But we all know what we're talking about here. So.
And who did Snaps
get
it from?
We're going to air the drama. Let's air the drama.
Well, that's the whole point, right? So when you have 5 or 6 communities of people coming after you, slandering your name, dragging your wife through the internet doxing process, and all kinds of other shit.
Them? Just tell us who they are.
Yeah, don't be squirrely, please.
So why am I catching all of the heat, though?
Because you're doing the same thing that they are, which is just throwing accusations on the wall. Yeah, absolutely you are.
No, I am trying to address. Whoa.
Okay, well let's go back. Let's go back to what Lindsay. Let's go back to what Lindsay did. Let's go back to what Lindsay did. Do you think that's a friendly gesture, in your opinion?
Jack, the fact that you didn't let me finish my statement is
because you're moving right along. Because you're moving right along rather than addressing the core issue of what I said.
No, it's because you don't like the pace I'm moving at, and you're not controlling me.
No,
I'm still not.
Address the whole issue. Address the whole issue where it started.
You're representing him, anyways, NeuroJack. So please, you're out of order.
iPhi.
Cynthia.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm still trying to understand the original complaint that you said you had.
The original
core issue.
Jack, this
Jack,
doesn't involve you right now. I'm just trying to get information from Cynthia.
The original issue is he's upset by Lindsay's question, and when I
which is inherently not a friendly thing to do.
Concerning you. Okay, it's not concerning. I know it's hard for you to believe that you're not the center of everything.
See,
but you're not.
okay, here we go.
Not in this moment.
Go ahead.
So the original question was the accusation that Lindsay asked him. I came and asked him, why are you acting, what is getting you so upset? And then it's turned into something different. My apology is on the other end. People came and told me what was going on. Now maybe he mentioned something to it about his marriage. I'm not that invested in other people's lives, so I didn't know the extent of what was going on with his marriage.
I think I can answer this for you.
Who is this? This
is iPhi. This is actually iPhi. So I think what happened was you got on the tail end of a bad exchange between Lindsay and the machine.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of danced on both sides of a very difficult subject. She brought up a broad topic, but then she gave a very specific personal example, which machine took offense to.
Mm-hmm.
And shut down the whole conversation, made him very mad, obviously. And then the other people in the room couldn't figure out why if he's such an open-minded person, why he can't have a conversation about this topic.
Yeah.
And so you may have been one of those people that you didn't understand why they were so mad at each other in the first place. First of all, again, she could have picked a better way to ask her question because she used a personal example to frame her question.
Why is she even go on panel to ask? Why not just ask it
also,
privately?
my understanding was it was
she did
go on panel to ask. It's recorded. I go on panel to ask questions to make sure it's on the record.
That's how I know about it.
I saw him react to the question about Muslims more than anything.
It wasn't about Muslims in general. It was about Machine and his wife specifically.
Same question, three different ways.
But anyway, regardless
of excusable,
that, keep hearing
two more times. It's just retarded.
So the problem, Cynthia, is it's the twofold. The first part was she was asking him specifically about his wife.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them, actually.
And then she turned it into a more broad question about the Muslim community in general and made it sound like he won't answer about his religion or whatever and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then you show up and say, like, what's the problem, guys? And then he starts yelling at you for not.
Right. And I'm like, whoa, bro. So, of course, the next day when it was brought to my attention that I'm doing it to, like he's going through these things, I caught the tail end. I went back and I thought about it and I was like, okay. So I wanted to have another discussion to apologize, but then he went crazy on me and, Jeff's chat the other day.
Because you reinforced the accusation in one of the streams.
I reinforced it?
Yeah, I forget the exact words, but I saw it.
How did I reinforce it? Like, doesn't have to be the exact
words. I remember the stream where you said he's getting pissy.
That's more or less probably.
Oh, yeah, I said he was acting like it was that one. Yeah, because
the last point of the drama that I witnessed myself.
But it's not productive, is it?
Right, but I did the right thing by come up and ask him and try to talk to him about it. He became upset and pissy about it. So then him and I had confrontation. And then today on my panel, Jeff came up and we talked about it. And
again, I don't know all the details, but I think I covered the most important detail. And I think now you understand why he's angry.
I want to let Jack back on. So I want
to exactly.
Yeah, we can let. Yeah, of course.
Maybe Jack knows better
Jack's
than me.
still young. He's still young.
Yeah, look, I'm not yelling to berate you. I'm yelling because I want to.
It's not even the berating or the yelling. It's the over talking, and it shows that your lack of maturity. And
okay. You don't need to. Okay, you don't need to throw your opinion in it. Look, we're talking about a factual claim.
No, that's not an opinion. That's an observation.
Okay, look. Here's the whole issue started with. You missed my question. Here's my question. Is what Lindsay did a friendly gesture the way that she tried to portray it? Yes or no?
No. I have no idea how what their intentions are in asking the question.
Okay.
And I've already addressed this on my panel. Okay. I've already said that he has the right to be pissed off at her for asking the question, and he has the right to be mad at the way she asked it. All of that is understood. He doesn't have the right
Okay,
to do the
well,
attack.
it's not about the right. It's not about the right to be angry or not. Nobody can control other people's emotions. That's a kind of a
Right.
BS way to put it.
And nobody
Yeah.
can control the
The question is not about that. The question is about, were her actions the way she portrayed them to be by any rational standard of, asking a question in a public forum about a crime, number one. Number two, your personal life, which many people associated with Lindsay and you are coming after his personal life on. Do you understand that? Does that make any sense whatsoever to you?
So, questions, we need to now censor and limit what questions we ask. Is this what I'm understanding? Number two, personal life. I didn't bring up his personal life. I brought up the way he was behaving afterward.
You're changing.
He's asking clarification, NeuroJack.
Yeah.
He's asking for clarification.
Okay, ask your clarification. Please. Yeah, ask your clarification, because I didn't say anything about we're not allowed to ask questions. I never said that.
Okay, I can't say why another person asked a question.
Jeff, I'll explain after they're done talking. It's very simple.
I can't tell you why another person asked a question. That's something only you can ask her.
Yeah, they can trigger by the questions.
How convenient.
They say you shouldn't trigger us, and that's ridiculous.
I feel like this is like
right, but you can infer
something.
Are we allowed to infer?
Instead of saying I refuse to answer, refuse to do it. So
obviously you're allowed to. He just inferred that I'm a lesbian. Is he not allowed to do that?
Who did?
Or should I censor that?
I didn't find it. Who's doing that?
TML said that I'm a gay elderly lady.
He's just
angry. But is he not allowed to infer that?
He's just posting angry.
Sure, but here's the thing: did he go and dig up your personal issues in your life and put it on display for the whole?
Did I go and do that?
Are you not associated with people who did?
Oh, and that if we're gonna play that association game, then everybody did that because everybody's associated with TML.
Yeah, stop playing officer snaps. It doesn't work. Let's get to the point instead.
Yeah, I didn't do that. So we're addressing what I did and my actions and how it pertains to me. And that's why I came up here to address it. He said no. He didn't want to address it. He wanted iPhi to be his Amish lawyer, which was fine. And
I think I did a pretty good job. I told you why he was mad and how it could be solved.
Just to give it some weeks in time.
No more. If you want to cut the time shorter, just acknowledge that you didn't know. You mistakenly entered into the conversation that he and Lindsay were already having.
I did.
And that's what upset him so much. And he feels like you're taking her side and you're like saying she did nothing wrong. That's what he's mad about. Now do you understand?
How the hell does iPhi know everything that
I'm
mad about anything?
I didn't take sides either. He didn't do that with me. I thought it was because she went on his show and said he was getting pissy, and he was.
I said he was.
One more time, Jeff. One more time. Listen, Cynthia went on Machine Live Show. She asked him a question about his personal life.
Lindsay did.
Lindsay did. Cynthia didn't.
Hold on. I'm going to explain to Jeff. He wants to know what's going on. So she asked the question that made the Machine mad. They ended their discussion very quickly because she tried to make it sound like it was a topic of debate, and Machine was already pissed off at that point. He said, I'm not talking about this. Fuck off. And so then later on, Cynthia shows up and says, hey, Machine, why are you getting so pissy? Because she has no idea what he's raging about. She's like, what's the deal? And so Machine interpreted that as Cynthia's taking Lindsay's side and saying she did no wrong whatsoever in her question. And so
that's not what I'm saying.
I know,
Cynthia. I know. I'm just being edifying.
It doesn't sound like something grown people even do.
Right. That's why I'm not understanding why this is turned.
I don't even know what the issue is. Machine's mad at you. That's the issue.
That's what I'm saying. I find like it's Machine lies. It's like the guru guy. The guy that knows every terminology, that's read 100 books a day, that's probably already read 5 today.
Jeff,
like, how is this guy so out of character?
It's 2 conversations and a lot of miscommunication. That's what the problem is.
Which is why I've been trying to have the conversation.
Am I right in thinking there's nothing more we can do without Machine?
Yeah, and
He'll
Yes.
say the
Yeah.
same thing I
Dogman.
just said. He'll say the same thing I just
Yes,
said.
he would.
Except he'll be more angry about it.
No,
Yeah,
not
but why?
exactly.
But now at this point, that this is an issue. I did everything I'm supposed to do, and my way of being upright, and my bringing up of life, and the way I'm made. I did everything I was supposed to do
But
because I actually have a lot of respect for TML. I do. As even though our faith is different, our walk is different, our viewpoints are different, I respect anybody that gets up and stands in their own path, and I can respect that. But all of this, I'm a lesbian. I'm just want to be with him. Like all of this is like childish behavior.
Cynthia,
Yeah,
I don't
I'm
know.
on
Being
his
called
the
lesbian
childish
sounds like
behavior.
that
Coming from
sounds like
this
a
guy.
compliment, Cynthia. You should take that as a compliment.
Cynthia.
No, I shouldn't take
You
that
might
as
as
a
well.
compliment.
Cynthia, can you hear me?
Yes, who's this one?
It's the voice of God. I'm speaking to you.
Oh,
So,
you're not.
do you understand that sometimes humans get triggered and become emotional and get angry at the people
Oh
they're
my
speaking
gosh.
to?
Yeah, but not this one. Not
That's
this
what's
guy.
happening with you and Machine right now. He got
But no, it
angry.
shouldn't be me triggering them, though. It shouldn't be me.
Cynthia, I already explained.
It
You
doesn't
did
matter
not
what the
trigger
trigger-
him.
the trigger could be
It
anything.
was
I trigger people all the
lit
time. That have nothing
triggered
to do
him.
with it.
Oh
You
my
showed up
gosh.
after the fact.
If you try to interject in a fist fight, you might get punched. That's what I'm saying here.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, dude. I don't know.
So Cynthia, you showed up.
Hey, Cynthia. Hey, guys. Donnie, that's not even how you spell my.
Hey, the
Stop
machine's back. He can speak. I
The
don't
judge
want
of
to
who
play
is
that
the
role
guru
anymore.
is calling me a fake guru, like snafu.
Well, we can't
old
without
like he's calling
Machine.
me
We
a
can't do
stupid old
anything
cunt.
else.
I never heard her call you a fake guru, Machine. She said that she said she called you a guru guy. She did say that, but I didn't hear her call you a fake guru. I think we're getting a lot of like cross talk, a lot of confusion here, and like I don't see any reason we can't have this work. We can't work this out. This isn't like. This is not like a. I mean, I
don't
agree
think
that
we
if,
can
like,
work
you know,
anything out until we understand Machine's side. Like
Hey,
him
by the
does.
way, Machine,
Yeah.
was I absolutely correct in everything I said, or did I miss anything? You can
Nope.
just yes or
Not
no.
at all.
I think it's evidence that when people start name calling each other, the tensions are probably a little bit too high, and a break is needed. Because nothing's
Yeah,
going to be
probably
solved
not.
when emotions are high. There's just absolutely nothing's going to be solved.
I'm not trying to be dense, Machine. I'm simply trying to be. I'm doing what I do in all situations, but I assume good intent. In
There
all
we go.
in all
That's all you need
conversations,
to know.
You're
and
part of the
and
board, the
He
collective.
gave the iPhi the thumbs up. Once
Yay,
again,
thank
another
you, iPhi.
victory for
Simply
iPhi.
from what
Thank
I've
you.
seen of
You're
this
welcome.
panel, I've only been in it a little while. People come and go. They fight. They make up. They're friends one week. They're next. So I don't see anything out of the ordinary for what I've seen from the panelverse in general.
Okay, so Machine Live said yes. Cynthia, do you understand everything I just said to you?
No, I didn't admit that I just started the name calling. He started
I
calling
say
me a
that-
bitch.
I didn't
And so I was like, why are you acting like a pussy?
No,
I'm
no,
not
no.
like a pussy. That really got him in his
Well, that would
feelings
be name
right
calling.
there.
The
All
only
right.
thing
Well,
I,
if Machine's not going to come on to give his side of it, then I'd like to move the topic to something else. 'cause
okay,
this
new
looks like
topic.
it has the potential to degenerate wildly.
The new topic. Every time NeuroJack speaks, you have to fix his audio.
Or,
So
and
no
he's not
more
even here right
echoing.
now. Or it can be mental health again because we were on that
Yeah,
one
we
too.
could definitely talk mental health.
I want to talk mental health with the therapy lady. Where is she? Summon her.
Who's the therapy
What?
lady?
I don't know her.
she's
either.
a very. If you're talking about Leslie,
Leslie.
she's a very busy person, and she will
got
probably
no
come
time
back
for
on the
you,
show,
son.
but
Oh,
we'll
actually,
have to, we have
I
to
can-
kind of book her in advance.
I can
Tell
reference
her
something.
iPhi has summoned her. Bathe her and bring her to me.
No, we don't. We can talk mental health.
I can reference something that was
You can participate if you
interesting
want.
about a person that she had on her show who is a liar about trans issues. Jamie
And
Reed.
here we go.
Jamie
IPhi
Reed.
out.
Yeah.
I don't know that person.
She was the one in Missouri who made up a bunch of claims of Missouri, Washington.
Okay, Lanza. I already had to block you once. Be very careful. Okay.
So
She
I'm
made up a
confused. What are we
story
talking
about
now?
Oh, I was talking about Jamie Reed and about how she made up how patients were treated at the Washington University Transgender Center in St. Louis.
Okay. Well, comment on it or send her.
Yeah. So basically, she made a bunch of claims about what doctors and medical personnel were telling patients that.
I would put a comment on the video itself and saying rebutting it.
I mean,
I can just post.
What contrary evidence do you have to their claims?
The families dispute whistleblowers' allegations.
I don't know these statistics.
There is a article from the Missouri Independent. Families dispute whistleblowers' allegations against St. Louis Transgender Center. She made a bunch of claims that a bunch of things were said to a number of families, and those families all. She just.
You're cutting out. Yeah, just put something on their channel because there's no way to examine that here. Oh, I think my speakers are going out again. I'm just gonna switch to the headset.
What I'm curious about
I don't know.
is
I feel bad every time we get to the end of like these kind of like I hate seeing like people I like arguing like this. I hate it. I feel like Cynthia. I feel like you like Machine, right? You're actually a fan of his.
I
aren't
actually
you?
like him. I like him. Now it's hard for me to fit in on his panels, but I definitely like him. And I like the comments and the perspective he brings, which is why I'm taken aback by his behavior towards me. When I've seen him have this behavior towards other people, but apologize and it become an issue. And I'm even taken more back that I'm the one reaching out, trying to make the amends, and I'm met with resistance.
You did try. That was a good thing to do, but he's not at that point. Are you able to just step back and leave it alone for a while?
Well, yeah, we were on my panel and you brought it up. I was like, okay, I'll come try. But see, he's like, she likes the drama. She's 100% fake, which is at this point, I
think Cynthia is in good faith. I really do.
And with this point, I just have to realize him and I aren't the same. Yeah, and that's just it.
Yeah, there's no evidence that she's fake.
Do you think some of it's guy girl?
Guy girl? Nah.
No, I don't.
Like
I thought that for a second, but he's too intelligent. He's too intelligent and in sound mind. He really feels this way about me. No. That's probably why she's online all the time. You're right. All I do is sit online. I never go anywhere else. Just sit here all day, waiting for someone to talk to me.
Yeah, I want to give Steve a chance to get a conversation back with he's been very patient and indulgent with us.
I just don't have any idea what you guys are talking about. So
I don't really either. I mean, I was not privy to any of this drama before this. Yeah. I heard about it for the first time now here. So
yeah, I was just I was under the impression we were talking about men's mental health.
Well, we started.
Okay. Well, I was just my question is
I'm definitely down for getting back onto that.
How can we improve men's access to mental health, and how can we improve that mental health?
Steve, I disagree with the notion that access to talk to a therapist is the same thing as accessing mental health. That notion is, I don't believe it.
We could talk about that separately, but what are the barriers to access currently? Because there's internal, like stigma and stuff, and there's but what are the external barriers would require different solutions than the internal barriers. So
I think a large part is the culture.
To access, first of all.
I think a large part is male culture. Is we've just been taught not to talk about our feelings, and that actually pans out in the statistics as well. As men are less likely to go to see a therapist or to seek out mental health programs.
Well, the programs don't work for me. The programs don't work for me. They literally are paying $100 an hour to get pissed off. That's literally
Okay,
what
so
happened.
that's where we
Therapy
should
is.
start. Is how do we improve the actual mental health
The
component?
ones that they can access. How do we? Yeah,
Sure.
I agree. I'm not optimistic. It looks pretty bleak to me because of all the activism that's taking hold
Steve,
in
it's
it.
literally me
So
paying $100
I
to
think
get
the
pissed
things
off,
you need to
and
do
it's
to
not
turn it
recorded,
around
so I can't
are
cover my own
long
ass.
past being able to correct right
They're
now.
just the doctors, they're God. They can make any story that went up. It just for onset, it can't possibly work. It's not a balanced relationship.
I understand that. What were you saying, Jeff?
I don't think that men support each other when they want to go to mental health. I think a lot of times when somebody says, "Hey, I need to go see somebody, or I need help with something," either they dismiss it or they don't really foster that thought and develop it. Hey, can I help you find somebody or anything like that?
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I'm the kind of guy. I've always been the kind of person that I open up my feelings a lot, and yeah, you do get shut down a lot by a lot of people. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do, and even women don't encourage it. Even women will look down upon you for opening up emotionally a lot of times. So it's not even just men not encouraging men. It's just in general, it's not encouraged in society. A lot of women will see men that are weak, see men as weak if they open up about their feelings. You know,
A lot of men will see men as weak.
Yeah,
I
a
don't
lot of people
necessarily
rely on
see.
us to be strong.
Yeah, there's that streak thing. There's like that like the expectations of roles of men by
What
other women in society.
I know when people have come to me with their mental issues and want to talk to it, sometimes it's too heavy for me and I don't know what to say and I pull back from it. But the last time that it happened to me, I just said, "Hey, can I help you get some help?" And I was able to call 988 3-way and I was able to help them. So I kind of realized I don't necessarily need to be the one to talk you through it, but I just need to get you to the right person and understand that that's doing enough. I don't need to be the savior of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, that's absolutely valid, and I commend you on doing that. I think, part of what I think is going on is that we don't have enough men in that kind of an atmosphere of mental health. It is unfortunately dominated by females, but if we have more men in those fields, we're able to help relate men to other men and the issues and the struggles that they face every day. And part of the reason why I created my men's mental health support group, was to give men an avenue outside of their marriages to talk about the things that are affecting them, so that they're not putting more weight on an already strained relationship. They can externalize their experiences to another group of men that might have access to experience and knowledge that have already been through these problems, and to create an atmosphere where it's okay to talk about these things. But then moving further down the road, like, what do we do to help kind of enculture men to feel more comfortable doing that? Because that seems to be a very difficult thing to get through. And you did the right thing by getting access to somebody else that might be able to help more. But what's the deeper thing that we need to be doing to help men come to the understanding that the most healthy thing you can do for your family is to get help? Like, how do we change men's minds about that?
So I belong to a social club. I don't know if any of you men, but it's only a women's, and we get together once a month. And one of us we have to host a dinner party just so we can keep our hosting skills sharp, our cooking. We have to make, but we have the social hour, well, a couple hours once a month, and just build together. We've done it 13 years now. So it's just keeping that community tight. For me, it's just always been a good way to talk to other people who are going through their own things in life. So having that community, not just a one-time thing, but that's also,
I think
it's hard to
healthy
keep
communities are part of it.
Yeah, it's hard to
Support
keep
network,
that community going.
community support.
Well,
so having them, like, not depending on just the men around you, but having
Mm-hmm.
access to a kind of man that does understand mental health, does know how to offer support, like more peer-based than you might get from just a random work setting or neighborhood setting.
Yeah. For me, you know, I run with a couple of different bikers, and there's this kind of overall sense that, you know, men don't need help. And then there's a few there's a few of the men in there. They're like, yeah, we've got issues. We need to deal with this. You know, I mean, suicides are what, 3 out of 4 are men, even though women do attempt more often, men succeed more frequently. And I hope that doesn't, well, I'm not going to say that, but I just hope that it doesn't get worse for anybody. But the biggest brick wall I ran into is when I posted I was starting a men's mental health support group on my Facebook page, which I've got, I think, somewhere around 700 or 800 friends, but which is not a lot. But I got overwhelming support for it. But the comments that I got the most were from men were, "This is a great idea, but I'm not going to do it."
But do they say why?
No. And I'm not going to press them for it. You know what I mean?
That's the key. That's what we try to figure out. That's one of the
okay.
little
Can
black
the
boxes.
presentation of a mental health group can it be the presentation? Because when I was on the phone with this guy talking to the lady, she brought up something, because he even said, hey, because he didn't even know I called a 988 person. He just thought I called one of my friends. And he said, I would have never called to need help. I'm not that type of person that needs help. And she said, but you're that type of person that needs to learn communication skills, is what it truly all breaks down to. What are the communication skills?
Right. And communication skills are something that I know a lot of men do not have because they've never been taught how to communicate their feelings effectively. And I think that partially goes back to the whole, socialization of male bodies. But there's a couple of people that talk about that. There's Tommy Curry, there's Warren Farrell. You know, both those gentlemen work in the men's sphere in different aspects, but both of them compete with the same idea that a lot of the problem is that we do not socialize our men from a young age to be able to talk about their feelings. So I think part of it is we need to start younger. We need to start drastically younger. And I started younger with my youngest son. We started when he was about 8 and trying to help him learn the language that comes along with healthy emotional intelligence and ability to communicate. And it seems to be working fairly well, but not perfect. So what are some of the things that we can do? Because not everybody's going to read a book, right? What are the things that we can do on the face that are going to help men?
And I think the strategies might be different for children in this next generation versus
well, definitely make it easier.
Like, what do we do for men in our peer group that's already been socialized a certain way, and so we don't have the advantage of
right? That is definitely a concern. My concern is are we going to be consistently playing catch up? Always. You know, that's probably you might be right. 8 years old might be too late, but also at the same time he needed to have the emotional intelligence to describe what he was feeling. So 8 seemed like it was appropriate for my child. It might be different for other children. But going back to what I was saying is placing the cart before the horse, so to speak, and dealing with things after they're already a problem, I think is not a solution. It's a Band-Aid. The solution really needs to start much younger than that. That's my opinion, and I'm looking for your guys.
Well, maybe if there is
feedback.
even this ultimate solution, but that maybe that's one type of solution.
Well, it's not one penultimate solution. I think there's a breadth of things that need to be done. There needs to be parents need to be parenting their children in ways that give them the kind of I guess language and emotional intelligence to even talk about these things. But you also have to have, because parents aren't the only people who influence kids. You know, there's also daycares and teachers and religious institutions, and all of these sort of axes need to be working sort of in tandem to helping to provide kids with not just sure, daycare workers, they make sure kids don't fucking kill themselves by doing stupid things while their parents aren't around. Yeah, sure, that's one of their roles. Another one of their roles, because kids spend so much time with them, is to help educate kids on social things, like how to interact with their peers, how to sort of understand their own emotions. Basically, all of these groups of people are responsible
I
to
know
different
adults
levels.
that don't even have that.
Yeah,
Well, but the adults don't have that because we
didn't with their children compared to now. It's dismal.
Yeah, and like so, like that's just one of the many things that we need to start working on now.
I think it's just opportunity, providing the opportunity for like whatever you need, child, adult, male, current male, whatever.
Yeah, now talking about
where
like,
they can
people
have
today,
that healthy contact and the conversations and support. Like, keep creating more of those opportunities wherever you can.
Yeah, and I do think that like for people today who are already adults, the solutions for that are much less systemic and much more individual. I mean, there are definitely like systemic things that can be done. You know, obviously, helping to cater our mental health institutions.
They can do something
more
about those
towards,
APA guidelines that they put out in 2017.
Sure, yeah, sure, fine. That's one of the many things. Another thing is, people need to be, I think, not more aggressive. People need to be able to be more open with just each other on an interpersonal level on these topics, because these systemic solutions aren't going to work as like they're not going to work immediately.
Yeah, I'm not saying
and there are things that we.
Like,
well, I mean, I think there are
the kind
some
of opportunities I'm talking about are going to be provided or be generated at more of a grassroots or ground up level anyway.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think that's kind of what you need to do, is to create a society in which people feel comfortable.
That's what we doing.
Yeah, but like we need to do this on a broader level.
Part of helping
like
to create that.
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to do. That's why I'm trying to grow the channel.
Yeah, but I mean, other people do. Like this
doing
needs
it.
like a broad, like people across society need to be doing this, because I think that's really the only way that that's the best way to actually change society.
I think like being able to hold the spaces for it to happen. Steve's good at that. We're doing it on this thing. We have other panels that are good at doing it. So even creating the infrastructure where it can happen. I think it's valuable.
I definitely agree with that. You know, and that's fundamentally, I think, at the root of my question is how do we create those systems and
Discord.
I think it's not necessarily about how do we create them, is how do we grow them to meet the needs of the people that we're trying to help.
Networking.
One of those things is also, like you said, holding a space that is non-judgmental, that is open to hearing conversations that need to be discussed, because one thing that a guy might discuss over here that might be weird and strange and off topic and whatever is not off topic for that person. It's a deeply concerning part of that person's life. Whereas we might have another person that might be dealing with that, but if you don't grow a community and a culture that is able to hold that space for that individual, we're not going to be helping people. If that makes any sense whatsoever.
No, it does.
I apologize for not having my brain not braining today.
You're fine. Happens to many of us many times. Look, my brain barely brains. All right.
It is important to have the conversations, because whether the conversations are healing those on the panel, it also affects those listening, and sometimes lets people know they're just not alone on the things that they're going through.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly so. And destigmatizes for
it just gets the conversation started, whether it be men who just, hey, I was watching this podcast the other day, and then they start talking about it in their community.
Yeah, that's what I don't worry so much about the panel drama that's going on, because I see so much potential in it still, despite all of the drama. And even the drama that there has been, I've seen it more or less worked through.
Yeah, most of the drama is mindless bullshit. It's just conspiracy theories thrown at the wall. without evidence to make it stick. It's gonna run out in a week because it just unsubstantiated.
There's always new drama.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I try to make sure I curate it so I have control
between me
over
and
it.
Hank, that machine's trying to cook up.
Jesus Christ, people's love for drama, man, it kills me. I got better
Yeah,
stuff to do with my time.
I think they would have it. If they didn't have it, they would create it. Like if we
Yeah.
lived in our perfectly drama-free society, people would
Yeah,
spill
here's the
drama over
thing.
anything.
At least with drama, it actually works itself out and resolves, and it's cheap. With therapy, I'm paying $100 a session. It's not recorded.
I don't. You don't
It's
have
not
good
recorded.
luck.
There's no resolution. It's just you go to you quick because you're frustrated.
Well, therapy is a process. I mean, it happens over time. It's not a.
Yeah, but I'm
rarely
not
a one
made of money though.
shot.
I need a resolution. I need a narrative.
Yeah, I just want
Probably not going to get that in one session.
Can you guys hear
Well,
me?
how many sessions would you
I don't
ballpark?
know. It depends on exactly what
Conflict
you're
isn't always bad.
So you can't even give me a ballpark figure, but it's very expensive. It's like going to a mechanic every week.
I don't know. Like
How
I'd say,
expensive it
like
is.
by 5 or 6 sessions, they should have some kind of outline for
Conflict-
you of the narrative you're looking for.
Oh my God. Conflict isn't always bad, but people somehow tend to think that it is. But sometimes you need conflict just to get resolutions.
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of transformative conflict.
You guys know I'm going to start a stream. I've actually already started that we can discuss this because I don't think Jeff wants me to discuss certain things about this topic on his channel, and I want to respect that. So I just want to let you know if you guys do want to discuss after Jeff's stream.
Well,
or
now
not.
I'm curious.
Copy.
So I just want to let you know I'm not gonna disrupt what you're doing.
No,
but
that's fine. I mean, you're welcome to
No,
siphon
you
off
give them an excuse to
Hank
shut
and
it down.
whoever else.
No, I'm just I've already tried to do it many times. It's something you're not comfortable with.
I'm just curious what topics.
No,
Like,
just post a
I should
link
be
in the
avoiding
comment
here.
or in the private chat, dude.
It's going to be the same topic. It's going to be about mental health. I just want to examine it from a different angle, and I don't want to, have 9 people, that's
Well, what angle? I'm curious that you can't examine it here from.
Well,
like a Christian angle
you
or
know,
a conspiracy angle.
You can join my stream, and we'll talk about it. I don't want to disrespect your show, so all right, thank you. Bye.
Do I get to talk on that stream?
You go. He's doing it now. I might even go see. He's approaching mental health and these same topics through some mysterious new angle that I'm very curious about.
You better not steal my shit.
Well, you better.
Oh, we're taking it.
Go catch
No, we're
him.
taking your shit.
I kind of wanted to drag Sarah in here to see what her thoughts on this particular topic is, but I don't know. She may not be into it right now. Is she still in the comments lurking?
See how we were talking mental health and got hijacked again?
What's NeuroJack's page? I'd like to go check that out.
He's Silver Tongue Cavalier.
I think that's the name of his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
No.
But
Okay.
he doesn't do a lot of. It's just video montages, really.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm always curious to learn new things and experience new perspectives. So,
Yeah.
Be
forewarned, he does flirt with that sort of like they're in control and they're the J words, and he flirts with a lot of that.
Like he's the they.
The they,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll check it out later. But
I've tried to talk to him and get him to see that if he would just be specific instead of sort of vague posting and making himself almost seem like he's anti-Semitic, then maybe he might get less criticism for it. But
welcome to the group.
He has not
Sarah.
taken my advice on that yet.
Oh, thank you.
I don't want to reopen this can of worms, but I don't know if you caught what this topic was.
About therapy?
No, it originally started with the transgender, and it went into communism.
Yeah, I definitely didn't catch that part.
Oh, okay. And then it eventually went into mental health. So you can like start here and work your way
he's
back
streaming
if you
us
want
to his channel. I see what he meant. Hi,
do you think
NeuroJack
that
channel.
mental health and,
Yeah, I'm
and
streaming.
the whole transgender movement is a worthwhile topic to get into?
Well, I'd rather talk about therapy if she has something to say about therapy.
Yeah, we can start with mental health and therapy. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I know that people need therapy, but my form of therapy is a little bit different. I'm not really a fan of the business of therapy. I think a lot of them have fucked people over more than actually helping them. And many push pharmaceuticals as the solution. And I don't agree with that in any way, shape, or form. I actually think that's only created additional problems and issues. But I can't say that across the board that all of, every psychologist is horrible or whatnot. That's not true. But there is a huge push.
I'll be that guy, Sarah. I'll say they're all bad, and then you can find one to prove me wrong. You can find one
I know
therapist.
many. I know many that are very good.
Jeff thinks he's got this therapist lady that can help, and as soon as I get my
I didn't
claws
say
into
no.
it,
Don't tell me what I think. I didn't say that. You created that narrative yourself, and you've been singing it for 2 days now.
So he had this therapist lady.
didn't
Did you
make
catch
you
that
think
episode,
anything.
Sarah? The
Probably
therapist lady
not.
visit. Leslie, I think is her name.
Leslie Elliott.
No, I haven't seen a Leslie yet.
You can go back and watch the replay. Anyway, she introduced
2 days
herself
ago.
and kind of said what she's about. So if she comes back, I would like some quality time with her, Jeff, and not 10 minutes to say hi, welcome to the group, and but
gave
actually
you
talk about a topic.
You decided you didn't have enough time for your topic.
Exactly, you're right. I didn't, and
So
so
don't try to shade that onto me.
So Sarah would definitely be a good addition to that group, and so
Okay, so getting back to what Sarah has to say about mental
yeah,
health
so
and therapy.
Go ahead, Sarah. Sorry, I derailed you.
Well, I truly think that real therapy and healing is needed. It's just not everyone needs the same style of therapy, for one. Drugs isn't the solution, too. And a lot of the therapy really just needs to be done on your own, which is very, very difficult, especially when you don't know how to go about doing it. So the biggest thing that therapy provides is practical ways to deal with healing. And if we can just provide that to the general public on how to go inside and confront these horrible things that we don't want to look at, that causes distress when you consider it.
Busted lib.
And find a way to allow yourself to experience it from like a third person perspective, where you can objectively look at what used to cause harm or triggering or discomfort or distress, and take yourself out of it emotionally so you can observe it objectively and truly see what occurred. Because the emotions and the attachments and all of the issues that it created,
no, you don't,
will distort what truly occurred.
Can I caveat that?
That's kind of what I was saying earlier. Yeah, go ahead.
So the caveat I would add to that is understanding and learning what maladaptive behaviors look like, so that we can prevent them from happening. One of the biggest things that I've found in my men's group is that all of us are fairly well read, and we can stop a guy in our group when we can see them starting to form maladaptive behaviors and resentments that really should be addressed. I think that's one of the biggest things I learned from therapy myself, was learning what maladaptive behaviors look like.
Yeah.
I like that you brought up objective, Sarah, because that's definitely my ballpark. So we need to get into that deep in the weeds at some point, but that's probably for another day.
I thought you were married.
Yeah, I am. So I probably even have a better understanding of objective reality. Would I not?
Yeah.
Well, and by objective, I don't necessarily mean. I just mean removing the the personal side, like
subjective.
Yeah, the subjectiveness of it. If you can truly watch yourself and the other people and remove yourself from it and just observe.
But that's intersubjective, not objective, though.
Right, nothing is truly objective.
I know what she's talking about.
Oh,
Yeah,
there are objective things, Sarah, but we'll save that for the non-psychological conversations.
But yeah, Steve, you could technically learn in therapy, but you can just call up on these panels. You'll figure out who's functioning and malfunctioning within a couple of days. And
so anyway,
that way I'm saving money.
One of the things I talk about on my channel, it's related to the introverted sensing function, which is linked to our impressions. It's like it's the memories that get strapped in your muscle, and in your DNA and whatnot, and it's linked to PTSD and your sense memories and triggering and all of these things. And one of the things it talks about for like soldiers that are trying to deal with PTSD and all of their trauma, it talks about ways of overcoming some of these things, and a lot of it is like journaling, putting it down, getting it out of your head, writing it down, and then reading it later so you can see it objectively when you're not triggered, when you're not when you're not in that emotional state where you're in a PTSD ordeal and you're in like fight or flight mode. If you can write it down and go back when you're not triggered and just read it for what it is, you can disconnect yourself from the emotions and look at it objectively and think about it logically. Okay, this is what happened. This is why it happened. This is why I responded this way. I can see why they did it this way. Like if you have an abuser, even be able to look from their perspective and say, okay, why were they acting like this? What caused them to do this? And then you can eventually get to the point where you can not only forgive them and forgive yourself, you have understanding for both. And we just find compassion, and you can truly find that forgiveness and healing within and release it.
Yeah. Have we talked about BDSM as a trauma resolution mechanism?
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, I don't mean to troll you or anything, but just to be serious with me for can you comment? I'm slightly shifting the topic. I'm sorry to do this to you, but can you please tell me your honest opinion on what Liv and Steve were talking about as far as the transgender psychology and mental health issue?
You'll have to recap because I missed that part.
Either one of them can do that.
That was fine. A lot of conversation to go over.
Just give her a paragraph of what you're.
There's no way I could. I'd be
there's not. Yeah, I mean,
you could skip it.
Okay, let me do it.
BDSM is trauma
resolution. Do you have any
resolution.
thoughts or feelings on the topic of transgenderism in general? Just the vague concept.
I mean, I have said a couple times that I believe it's an anima or an animus possession. I think it's a psychological thing where they are swinging from one extreme to another. And I think there's a lot of things that are influencing that. You know, you have grooming going on. You have a natural reaction that everything in creation will do. If we are swung too far one direction, everything in humanity and in creation and in life will naturally pull you in the opposite direction to bring us back to equilibrium. And we have been pushed to one side for so long that we are in a stage where creation is being pushed in the opposite direction to find a natural equilibrium. And because we're being pushed in this way, I think those that don't have what's best for us in mind are trying to push us beyond the equilibrium and go all the way swinging to the other direction. And they're doing that in a variety of ways.
This is true. The trans agenda is about making sure that every single person gets transed. No boys allowed. We're going to trans all the boys.
What about the girls? The trans girls?
They're trying to we're just going the opposite direction. They're trying to push the men to become women and women to become men when we're trying to come back to center. The men have been pushed over to the masculine side. Deny your feminine, deny your feminine, deny your feminine. You don't have any fucking feelings. Remove your, that became a wounded feminine. And the women are over here, you don't have any logic, you're fucking stupid, sit in the fucking kitchen, only do this, only do that, you're emotional, you're irate, blah, 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 and you wound our masculine. And we're trying to come back to center because we all have masculine and feminine qualities.
So we're all non-binary.
So
in terms of our energy and our qualities and our aspects, yes. Biologically, no. No. We are male and female biologically.
So do you consider transgender people in general to be mentally healthy?
I think they are. I think it's like a coping mechanism for a psychological ordeal. They are connecting to their anima or their animus, and they're identifying with it rather than recognizing that.
But is that mental unhealth?
I think
Lib seems very mentally healthy to me.
I think it's the exact same thing, just the opposite spectrum of denying the feminine and being super masculine. When you claim you're the female and deny your masculine aspect is the same thing. You're just on the opposite side of the coin. So claiming men who won't, incorporate the feminine, I think is the same issue as men thinking they're only women and denying their masculinity.
I do actually have an interesting question then. How do you sort of like square this understanding of what trans people are with the fact that there are, say, masculine trans women, there are feminine trans men? What are they? What is it that they're doing then? Because if your claim is that the point, like, trans people are, like I, for instance, as someone who is assigned male at birth and is a trans woman, I should be trying to tap in inherently to like the femininity, right? Like that's your argument. That's my goal, is to become the feminine.
It's more like you're identifying with it and you're dismissing the masculine side of things.
Except what if, for instance, in my case, I don't think that masculinity or femininity is something that is like inherent to gender. I think they're.
I agree with that.
Yeah, they're separate topics, but yeah, like this is my point, right? So like there are trans women who are like they have many traditionally masculine traits, and not even just that they have these traits, they actively attempt to perform these traits despite being still trans women. Well, no, I'm saying trans women, not cis. Are you trans one?
No. I tend to have much more masculine qualities than more female, and most of my friends are men.
Sure, but like
I have a lot of female friends.
Sure, but like I guess how does that square with what you're talking about? If like there are any number of trans women who are attempting to be, they're still vehement in that they are women, that they're transgender women, but they're whatever, they dress butch, right? Like whatever, however you might want to describe that masculinity. Right,
they're incorporating their outside exterior identity with the masculine, whereas I don't exteriorly identify as a man. I don't think that I'm a man.
No. They don't identify as men. These are people who are transgender women who were assigned male at birth, who live some portion of their life as boys or men, and then have at some point in their life been like, no, actually, I am a woman, and that sort of thing. But they're not like super feminine. They're intentionally retain masculine traits or masculine identifiers. How would that square with what you're talking about? Like what are those people then trying to do? Because they're definitely outside the scope of what you're talking about.
I would say they're probably more on the rare side of things. And I would imagine it's going to be different for each of them. It's not going to be a blank slate where everyone's going to fall into this. This is why I think this and feel this. But from my understanding, in regards to men having more feminine aspects and women having more masculine aspects, I don't think that these aspects are based off of gender. I think it's more of personality type. And I identify personality types by the placement of your cognitive functions. And generally, masculine qualities are thinking and doing. So these are your thinking and sensing functions, versus the feminine is usually the intuitive and the feeling function. So just from the separating of the 8 cognitive functions into sensing and thinking and feeling and intuition, I can differentiate, how they're stacked as to whether or not your personality is going to be more masculine or more feminine. And that's going to be the ego, the exterior persona. But inwardly, you're going to be the opposite spectrum, because what's not in the ego is in the shadow, so you've repressed it. So if you're male with more masculine qualities in the persona, your interior feminine unconscious is going to be very, very feminine. Or if you are a masculine and you have more feminine qualities on the exterior persona, the interior will be more masculine.
That sounds so complicated.
It's really not.
More complicated than the gender.
Let me see if I can complicate it some more.
I was actually about to say it feels less more like you're complicating things and more like you are attempting to, I think, simplify human psyche and human interactions, because I think it is far, far more complex than that. We categorize these things. We categorize things, right? We created the categories of masculinity and femininity, and we created these categories and associated them with other categories that we had also created. So I guess my question is, what is the goal of, I guess, continuing to use these labels and keep them connected to these other arbitrary categories that we have created? Because sure,
after you. Okay, so I think it's important to note that there are no there aren't any energies that you can actually consider directly masculine or directly feminine. That's a mislabeling, right? So what you've got is clusters of behaviors that we assign or that we have acknowledged exist in a particular set of group of people, right? There was a study done a couple of years ago that was really remarkable, and it found that men and women have the same depth and range of emotions as each other. They're no different. It's how they differ is how we vocalize and express those feelings. That's where the difference lies. So for me, I take the masculine and the feminine out of the conversation when it comes to that, because you can have very, I guess you would say, butch women and very feminine men, right? That doesn't make them any less men and any less female, right? So acknowledging the fact that these subsets of information that we call behaviors really are overlapping, and they cluster into certain groups, but they're not inherently one or the other. We just find more clusters in one group than another. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying, and we have definitely identified things in certain ways. And what I would say is that in the physical world, we have actually inverted them. So what we generally call masculine or generally call feminine are actually inverted. In the spiritual world, what is considered masculine in the physical is actually the feminine. And what's considered feminine in the physical world is actually the masculine in the spiritual world. We have completely flipped and inverted everything.
I think this might be where I think our perspectives on this might diverge, because I don't particularly discuss, I guess, people we consider, we'll put heavy air quotes, the spiritual world, given that, I guess, what you would, well, not necessarily, because I think it's like
the word energy, if that would be better for you.
You're talking about a non-falsifiable thing, right? So like, when you're talking about things that are spiritual or energy or things, you're not talking about things that we can like definitively quantify and talk about. And these other topics where we're talking
test for them is what you're saying,
or even like like these other topics are more about like society, social constructs, and while these aren't falsifiable in the same way that like we can talk about how many atoms are in a piece of gold, right? we can perceive the categorizations that humans create and basically create sort of like a roadmap or create a system that's being created. Whereas I'm not convinced that we can do the same when we're talking about energy, the spiritual world, things of that nature. Like when I talk about this, if I were to talk about the spiritual world, I would be talking about something very different than, say, some of my Southern Baptist friends would be talking about. You know, they'd be talking about how there's angels and demons flying around and fighting a spiritual war, and I'd be talking about something completely different than that.
Hey, Sarah, when he's done talking, I have a question for you, but I didn't want to interrupt him. So
I'm done.
Oh, thank God.
Okay.
Anyways, okay, so Sarah, I'm trying to avoid just like, you know, putting you on the spot, but I'm afraid I'm just gonna have to cut to the chase because this shit's dragging on way too long. So if you encountered a person like Liv, for example, would you have a negative, neutral, or positive response to his condition? Meaning
His condition?
Yeah, his condition. He's a trans person, so
I wouldn't call it a condition. He's still a human being. I would have no reaction unless he was an asshole or she. I'm sorry, I don't remember which way you said.
Humans have conditions, Sarah. They have physical conditions, mental conditions.
I don't usually judge people like that.
You're not judging him. He's already
if they treated me like a piece of shit, I'll think they're a piece of shit.
No,
if they treated me normally, I would see.
I think you're completely
neutral. I guess would be my initial reaction.
I think you're completely misunderstanding the question. Let me rephrase it. Okay, so like from a therapist point of view, like let's pretend you're a therapist for a second, and Liv came to you as a patient, and his condition is transgenderism, and he says, "I want to talk about this thing." Would you negative say that he has a bad mental condition that needs to be fixed? Would you be neutral and say, I'm not judging, you are what you are? Or would you be positive and say, there is nothing to fix, you're a great, beautiful person, let's celebrate who you are? So what would your response be there?
Wow, that's not a loaded question at all.
I would say that every human being,
let Sarah talk. Go ahead, sorry.
Every human being has a condition. First of all, so to think that anyone that comes in and says that I'm 100% perfect and healed and wonderful and I have no issues is a lying piece of shit.
We already established the condition, and so how would you respond to it?
My response wouldn't be anything like that. It wouldn't. That's not how I would respond.
You wouldn't have a negative, neutral, or positive response. Is there a fourth option?
No, I would have a receptive response to help someone who wants the help and is willing to be helped in whatever direction we can go. That is
help him how?
For them.
Help him how, Sarah? Help him celebrate his specialness, or correct his error, or neutral? You don't judge. You just let him be what he is.
That depends on the person. It depends on the situation. To me, it's not
a therapist, Sarah. He's not asking you to ask him to fix himself.
I'm literally telling you I would need to interact with him one-on-one in a therapy session to tell you how I would respond and what was best for them.
So in general, you aren't able to discern whether or not this is a mental illness or not. You feel like it's
no, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
What I'm job is not to judge, and you're asking for a judgment.
Yeah.
I am asking for Sarah's judgment. You are correct, sir.
Right.
Thank you for clarifying that.
And I'm telling you, I'm not going to judge a person like that.
What does that mean? You're not going to judge a person like what?
I'm not going to say you suck because you do this.
Okay, Sarah, one more time. I didn't say you were going to give a negative judgment. I'm asking you how you would respond.
Yes, but you're giving me options that I wouldn't choose.
What's a fourth
I don't like any of your options.
What's the fourth option other than negative, neutral, or positive?
I told you. How I would respond is dependent to that particular situation and the interaction. I don't know what my judgment would be because it hasn't occurred yet.
Let me try an analogy just to see if we're on the same page or not, because I feel like I'm losing you very fast.
It's situational.
Okay, let's say you're an ER doctor and a patient comes to you with a broken arm, okay, and the bone is sticking out of their skin and starting to bleed to death, would you react to them with a negative, neutral, or positive response?
I wouldn't react to them at all. I would do my job and fix their arm.
Okay, so the negative response would be, there's something wrong with you. I need to fix it. I'm going to pop your bone back in place and suture up your skin so you don't bleed to death. The neutral response would be, hey, I'm not going to judge you. You know, maybe you want to bleed to death. Maybe you like bones sticking out of your skin. Who am I to judge? And then a positive response would be, you go, girl. Don't let anyone body shame you. You're beautiful just the way you are. So we need to encourage more people to break bones and bleed to death. Now do you understand my question, Sarah? I can't put this any more blunt in English.
I can understand that you see that them being a trans person is a problem. It's a broken arm. That's how you see it. And
well, I'm glad
you're
you
wanting me to
understand
agree
me.
with how your assessment is.
Now I'm trying to understand you. So are you going with the neutral, I don't want to judge or appear to be a judgmental person option? What's your response?
If they are capable of living a good, healthy life and are content in their situation, I'm not going to say what they're doing is wrong.
Does a good, healthy in life include mental health, Sarah?
Yes, but you got to understand that everyone has mental issues, and how they decide to live their life accordingly will depend on what's right for them. And though, like men who refuse to acknowledge their feminine side, which I see as just the other side of the coin of someone who's denying their masculine and choosing only the feminine, I see them as the same thing. But we don't see that as a problem generally in society because we've accepted that as the norm. But both of them are fucked up in terms of denying half of yourself.
Okay, so as a mental health expert and or clinician person, you know, like a therapist, again, I'm trying to help you see this from the eyes of a therapist. If I had a mental illness and I came to Hank and I said, I need help, and Hank is a human doctor, and Hank said, oh, hi, mentally ill person, how can I help you? And I say, no, thank you, doctor. I identify as a fish. You can't help me. And so he recommends I go to Sara, who will see me as my fish identity and celebrate it and not judge, and create a warm and welcoming environment where she can treat me properly as a fish.
That's not what I'm saying I would do.
Also, it is worth noting, iPhi, that part of the goal of therapists is to create a sort of safe environment for people to express themselves and their emotions, to become emotionally vulnerable, because that's one of the best ways to grow as a person and learn things about yourself, and for other people to learn things about you.
So do you agree, Sarah, that I should go to Sara, the fish therapist, instead of the human doctor, Hank? Is that going to solve the problem?
I think you are oversimplifying it to such a detriment, because I wouldn't do any of these options that you're suggesting. I would have compassion and understanding. I would try and dive deep into what the root cause is for why they're wanting to live a way that goes against from what's considered normal.
Is it uncompassionate for Hank, the human doctor, to point out, sorry, iPhi, you're crazy. You're a human being. You just need help. Is that uncompassionate of him?
I mean, it really depends on what you've done.
Just to make
not
judgments.
That kind.
I would
It's not
say
the role of
yes.
a
I would say it's
therapist to make
uncompassionate.
judgments,
Yes.
because the moment you do, you're placing your beliefs and your biases onto that person. Therapists are trained from the very beginning to enter into therapy with another person in a neutral state, because your influence on that person can affect their therapy, right? So your job as a therapist, and I know this because a lot of my friends are therapists, and we've had this conversation many times. Their job isn't to cure you; it is to help you fix yourself. So if you inject your own beliefs into that relationship, you're actually doing them a disservice. So she's never going to come at it from any other place than neutral. Whereas a broken arm is a very, very specific, non-psychological issue. You can tell that arm is broken. We need to fix it. Does that make sense? So
I'm curious why you're answering for her. That's part of what I can't figure out.
Because you keep asking the same question, trying to elicit an answer that she will not give you.
No, I'm not asking the same question. I've asked different questions each and every time. I've had to clarify my question because it was misunderstood the first time. But thank you, speech therapist. I can ask Sarah the questions directly. She's a grown woman and can respond for herself.
Well, the answer kind of makes sense, but I understand the answer, but it doesn't actually make sense, and I'll explain why. So the therapist helps you fix yourself, then why couldn't I just fix myself without the therapist?
That's what I'm saying. If you know how to do it, you can. Sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Because, Hank, I think I'm a
Hey, let Sara go. Let Sara.
But what you said, Hank, is my point that I said at the very, very beginning, is that we are trying to heal ourselves, and really the only reason to go to therapy is if you don't know how to do it yourself. And the therapist is there to guide you so you can do it for yourself.
Yes.
Because no one heals you except yourself.
Yeah, but how do they know they can heal themselves? If they don't know how to heal themselves, how can they teach me how to heal myself?
Yeah, Sarah. Again, if I come to you for help and Hank tells me, oh, just go see Sarah, she will identify you as a fish and she'll help you. Is that helping me? Are you helping me in that situation?
I don't think so.
Finally, a voice of reason.
I'm not
from the mouth of babes. Thank you.
I'm not saying that you should tell someone that what they're doing is okay, but I don't think you should also outright necessarily say that what they're doing is wrong. I think as a therapist, you should help them understand why they want to do these things and why they think they are these things. So then they can divulge the actual underlying reason that creates this effect. So then we can heal the problem without outright saying they're wrong and there's an issue. They can figure out, okay, I'm healing, and then eventually come out of it where they no longer identify as a fucking fish. And I never once said that they were wrong or bad or evil or you're horrible. I didn't place a judgment. I simply helped them realize what was the problem to begin with, to heal themselves so they no longer identify as a fish.
I think I better understand your perspective now, Sarah.
So did you get your question answered?
For that moment of clarity, because when you have to point out the answer, I feel like the whole panel is becoming lost.
No, it's just you, iPhi.
No, Hank, Jeff understood. You didn't understand in that particular
You're not psychic. Steve.
You're not psychic. He said it with his own words.
My question with Steve is, how can the therapist teach me how to heal myself if I can't verify that they can even heal themselves?
Well, from my understanding, what they do is they help guide you. They don't tell you what to do. What they try to do is keep you from making new maladaptive behaviors and also calling you on your bullshit when it needs to be called. So if you give an answer to a therapist that doesn't make any sense, any kind of reasonable sense as to why they're leading to this place that they're at, then the therapist is responsible for saying, hey, something doesn't make sense here. Can you explain a little bit further why this makes sense to you, right? Their job, again, is not to pass judgment on people. Their job is to help that person travel through healing without being more fucked up when they leave. Does that make sense?
How do we measure the fucked upness? How do we measure the direction we're going in?
Therapeutic goals.
Therapeutic goals is one thing, but another one is education. Like there's systems in place where people go to school to learn these things, right? So, just saying that therapists are useless is not a useful position to hold, because I've gained massive benefits from my therapist, even though a lot of things didn't work out. I gained a lot of insight into who I am just by talking it out and realizing the thing that I just said is absolute bullshit. And she was kind enough to call me on it. And so then I had to actually perform an internal investigation as to why I was holding these beliefs. But at no point in time did she judge me. Did she criticize me? Did she tell me that I was wrong? None of those things, because those things are counterproductive to the healing process.
Mm-hmm. And I would also say that measuring your healing isn't going to be like measuring something else. It's not going to be a straight line where I was here and now I'm here today. It's like climbing Mount Everest, okay? You got to go up to a point and then you got to come back down. You have to recalibrate. You got to go back. You got to retest things that you've dealt with. have I really healed these? No, I just had a really good day where everything was wonderful and good, and I backslid that day. It's not a straight line. It's a constant up and down, ebb and flow, and you eventually heal certain things where you no longer drop back so far as you used to. It's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So if you think it's actually a one-line shot, you're being delusional about how healing works.
Yeah, I actually can talk a little bit about this because I have been to therapists and talked to them about my trans stuff, and I actually, while I was doing that, I very intentionally looked for people who were not like specifically like a expert on, you know, sort of like trans therapy. I very distinctly looked for, hey, look, this is just a general therapist helping for people in their general lives, and like, yeah, that's basically what they did. Was they, you know, they helped me work through, I guess, my own thoughts and feelings on the issue, and were there to call me out on my bullshit, and to help me create better patterns, better like ways of thinking that would help me in the future. And that was someone who wasn't like, I didn't go to like some therapist who was like, oh, you think you're a woman? Ah, yes. We will sit here and you know, say that over and over. And here's your HRT, and we're gonna chop your dick off now. And you know, that didn't happen, because that's not how therapy works. Thankfully, that's not how therapy works. Therapy is a long process, more of like self-discovery than anything. Like, should be the goal. It should be about like learning about yourself and how to best function yourself.
Oh, okay. I guess the whole paradigm just simply doesn't work for me because I need to learn on the field. I can read through the books myself, and I do, but if it's reading the book to me, they're kind of useless to me because I already read the book myself.
They're usually not reading a book. Usually,
if you're
what
that
they are
self-aware and you can already direct your development, you don't need them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's perfectly okay to do that, Hank.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, I will say, as somebody who I like to think at least that I'm self-aware, I have even found a lot of help from therapy, even though I would like think of myself as quite self-aware, because even if I am self-aware, I'm human. I'm prone to making mistakes and having blind spots, and having just another person there, even just to listen, is helpful just on its own.
Yeah, for me, I did a lot of victim advocacy work, and I heard a lot of really horrible fucking things. And I didn't realize it until much later on that I was internalizing those things. And so I had to go to a therapist to try and help unravel those things without causing further damage to myself. And it was a hugely beneficial process for me. But the thing that I firmly believe is that not one person can know everything. And I know a lot of stuff. I mean, you can see all the books. I read a lot. But that doesn't mean I know shit. Right. So that might be an area, you know, it's really hard to be connected to oneself so deeply that you understand all the reasons why you're doing the things that you're doing. So having someone else there that can possibly help guide you through that process is incredibly beneficial. And that's why I've always been an advocate for therapy.
I personally did not have good experience in therapy, and I only went in high school. But I know that my experience isn't how it always is. I know lots of people that had very good results, which is why I specified that I can't use that as a blank slate where they're pushing medications and they don't actually help you. I see that a lot, but I know that that's not the case across the board.
For what it's worth, I also actually, my first brush with therapy was quite negative, because my parents took me to a religious therapist.
And pushed their judgments on you, and it wasn't good.
Yes, it was a
That's the problem.
Yeah, that was I think one of the bigger things. We did eventually swap to like an actual. Unfortunately, America has this fucked up thing where like fucking half of therapy organizations are like all like associated with churches, which doesn't inherently make them bad. It just does mean that there's always that danger of those kinds of things happening. We did eventually swap to a Presbyterian church, and their psychological organization actually is an actual one, like is a real one. And I went to a therapist, and like it was actually very helpful.
Chris, are you awake? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was responding to I was responding to a doctor. I was thinking from my doctor. I'm sorry.
No, don't worry.
I'm listening though. I'm listening. I haven't. I just had. I mean,
You had
your
that
guys'
hash
conversation.
that hat on Poshmark.
I'm lucky because I have access to a lot of people that work in the mental health industry. So my daughter is a therapist. One of my very good friends is a behavioral analyst. I've got two other friends that have PhDs in psychology. So I've got really great access to people to be able to ask them really important questions about what therapy is, what psychology is, and some of them are Jungian and some of them are traditional, and there's a gambit of them. So I get a lot of remarkable responses, and one of my favorites is my friend who's a Jungian, but I don't always agree with them on things. But I think the thing that you kind of hit there, Liv, was that you immediately came in and were judged, or you were put in a specific box that did not help your therapy. And if anything, that should help. If I understand the nature and answer of his question, it doesn't help people when they come in immediately being judged, because they're already being judged by everybody else. Why would they go to therapy to be judged again? Yeah, it makes no competent sense. So the best and most healthy thing to do is meet someone where they're at and just be neutral. Doesn't mean that there's not something wrong with them. It just means I'm not going to pass that judgment on to them.
Yeah, if you can. But not everyone's able to do that.
Well, there's some shitty therapists out there.
Yeah, I was about to say, Steve, it sounds, you got a lot of really educated people in your life. Sounds like you just know a bunch of the woke psychologists, all right? Oh, man.
Yeah, I know, right?
They're infected with all that woke stuff. PhDs? That sounds woke. PhDs sound woke.
Who's Talcott?
No, you don't need to talk to Talcott. It's fine.
I just want the betterment of all people. I want people to be happy. I want people to get the mental health that they deserve, and to be happy, productive members of society.
Hey, that part might actually go over good with Talcott. That you might find some common ground. That'll probably be the end of it, but
Yeah.
He's streaming.
Well, I've got to go spend some time with my son. He got home from school, and I want to spend some time with him. So I'm going to hop off here. But thanks for everybody for letting me be here and let me talk. And
yeah, thank you.
I'd love to see you more. Yeah, no,
it's always
definitely, Steve. I always appreciate your time here, because you always have really insightful, intelligent things to say.
He's the Shade Tree intellectual. You can check him out on YouTube.
Yeah,
Steve.
Yeah, look at my more of Steve in the playlist. That's where a bulk of my work comes from. And that I just want to touch on something. I did some really remarkable things with Coach Erica Love. That one, I loved working with her, and it's funny because she's a Black Christian woman and I'm a white atheist man, and we got along just fine. We talk on a regular basis. She called me when her mom passed away. Like, these kind of relationships can be fostered with understanding, and I absolutely loved my time with her. And pretty much everybody else, and I really appreciate you guys.
Tell her to come talk to us.
What?
I think I will. I'm letting her heal.
Oh,
I'm not pressing her for too much time. Yeah. So, but she's amazing. But yeah, if you go onto my page, I don't have a whole lot there because a lot of my stuff is done external from that, like with Critical African Thinkers and a bunch of different other groups. So yeah, fun times. But anyways, you guys have a great night.
Yeah, absolutely.
You too, as well. Steve, thank you again. Good to see you.
Thank you. Yeah,
what
Frank.
Movie are we watching tonight?
Do you guys watch movies?
I haven't given it on Discord. Yeah. I thought you didn't. Did you not come in? I thought you came and checked one of them out, Sarah. Did you not?
I was watching the documentary the other day. Was that yesterday?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
We watch movies a lot too.
A long day.
Yeah. We could finish that one too.
Yeah, it's a good documentary actually. I actually would encourage y'all to get to the second half, because.
What do you consider the second half? we're like on about 7 right now.
Probably when it starts. Oh God, let me pull it back up. Probably when it gets to like 10 or 12, I think, is when he starts to like stop just doing like a recap of the events and actually starts to talk about like the fallout and the people involved and all that other stuff.
That's the second part you would.
Yeah,
say.
it
Okay,
is
yeah,
actually a much more interesting
Well,
part.
you could come watch with us. It's going to be on single speed.
I already watched it 2x speed.
Okay.
I appreciate the
Or we could
invitation.
go watch NeuroJack's, whatever this alternate perspective is on mental health. Illumitommy's in there.
Illumitommy's in there? Oh God. Like,
that probably is going well.
So anyway, that's another option. That's it. What is it? Cinema 2. But Cinema 1, I guess we can go watch some more of that Evergreen.
Yeah, I guess we can. I mean, we can watch it. We can watch a movie though. I mean, like, is there anybody have any favorite Valentine's movies? Anybody have any favorite romances?
Yeah. What's a good love movie?
Ooh, okay.
A good Valentine's movie.
I'm gonna recommend. It's not a Valentine's movie, but I'm gonna recommend one of my mom's favorite movies that I love. 16 Candles. Oh my God.
Oh my God, that was my life.
My
birthday party.
I think my favorite romantic film is probably Say Anything, I would say, or and I'd also nominate Scott Pilgrim vs. the World because it's basically it's about a more complicated romantic situation. But
we do stand Scott Pilgrim. I love Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. It's a great movie.
Say Anything by Cameron Crowe.
What's a guy movie? A Valentine movie?
Valentine's movie for guys.
I mean, that's why I was Say Anything. It's kind of like that. It's not much of what you call a chick flick. It's
Independence Day. There we go.
It's early John Cusack. Independence Day, right? Okay.
WrestleMania 18.
We could watch.
Does that Say Anything with them?
Yeah, Say Anything. Yeah, Say Anything.
Yeah.
Or we could watch, one of the many Valentine's horror theme things. Wasn't there one like about like somebody like some Valentine's like killer or something like that?
Yeah, I'm not gonna watch the slasher ones.
I love slashers.
I don't blame you. They're terrible, but
I don't know. Well, okay, so the slashers that aren't Saw are terrible. Saw though, the Saw movies,
I cannot sit through a Saw. I like Scream, some of them, but I cannot sit through Saw.
The very first Saw is okay. I don't really care for
Frank is saying Kiss of the Spider Woman. I haven't seen that. Like,
yeah, it's a good movie. I downloaded it last night because Frank asked me was asking.
It was okay. It's more of a drama than anything.
Is that the new one?
No, it's a movie. It's actually a movie from 1985.
On it.
Oh shit!
1985.
There's some Spider Woman thing or Web Woman. I can't remember. I saw an ad for it and it made like all ads. It made me want to like throw my
Madam Web.
Madam Web. Oh my God. I mean, I'm sure it looks good. I just hate seeing ads. So.
No, that movie.
Anytime I see an ad,
dude, it looks legitimately awful. It looks legitimately awful. Like every superhero film that's come out since pretty much since Endgame happened, it looks legitimately bad.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like
I don't think anyone's gonna get anything good out of that.
We watched the Deadpool trailer and like I don't know, I enjoyed the first Deadpool, but I'm just kind of sick of Marvel-esque movies coming out. I think.
Yeah, me too.
I want Marvel to just that whole like vein of movies to just die off and them to make different movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for real.
Be nice.
That would be really, really nice.
What do you want to watch, Frank? Spider Woman? There's got to be a happy compromise.
Well, let's. I mean,
there's no happy compromise with
Sarah's
Frank.
new, so Sarah.
I do have to actually get back to work, so I probably won't make that.
Okay. Okay, never mind. I was gonna say I would let you choose.
Yeah, well, it was good seeing you. And,
yeah, it was good seeing you.
Yeah.
Glad you stopped by, and we'll be here tomorrow.
Appreciated.
Yeah, The Princess Bride is always a good one.
Ooh, that is a good one. Also, it's
Princess Bride is great. Princess Bride is great. That's true.
Monty Python and the Holy Grail. There we go. That's a great. It's got a romance plot in it with Sir Lancelot. That's a romance plot, right?
Is it a football movie?
Oh God! Actually, Remember the Titans is pretty good. Remember the Titans is actually really good. I love sports movies. I also like there's some good sports anime too. Yeah, Holy Grail's always good. I don't think it's the best Monty Python. Yeah, I was about to say Life of Brian. I think is Monty Python's like best work.
Yeah, Life of Brian's great. I like Meaning of Life too, for that matter. I watched Holy Grail probably more times than I did any of the others when I was growing up, just because Holy Grail it was just like the one that you watched when you were 14. So
yeah.
Anyway,
you watch over and over and over.
Yeah, no, I'm guilty of being able to quote most of that movie at one point in my life. So,
do y'all want to migrate to the Discord and figure it out there?
Yeah,
we'll do that. All right.
Okay.
It's been really nice talking. I know I didn't talk much. It's been really nice listening to the conversation today.
That's
guys.
okay. You don't always
Sarah.
talk.
You're good. You're good.
I try to be quiet sometimes and just let the conversation happen. You know.
Yeah. No, I do too. I wanted to interrupt iPhi half the time because it did feel like he was. I don't know. I felt like if I had interrupted him and gotten a word in, I could have simplified it, for him. But I also don't think he was gonna let me. So just let him go off. Give him enough rope to hang himself.
All right.
Anyways, y'all have a good evening.
All right, guys.
Discord
later on. Bye. Good night, man. I'll see you on Discord. Bye.
Happy Valentine's. Do something nice for yourself if you have no one. Or I hope you have a good time with your Valentine if you do. And we'll be in the Discord watching either horror Valentine movies or comedy Valentines or some kind of Valentines. It's silly madness. So see us there. We'll be here tomorrow. Bye. See you then.